Call this meeting to order. Laura Lee, will you please call the roll?
Stu Boyd,
Here.
Denise Chapman,
Here.
Lori Goebel,
Here.
Dawn Kirk, Alexandra Lessa,
Here.
Nancy Rumfelt, Mike Scholl. Oh,
Here.
sorry, Mike.
With a perfect timing.
Good timing, good timing. Lori, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Folks, the flag is the large flag right there.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Lori. All right. Agenda item number 2 is the approval of the agenda. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Okay. Motion from Denise. We have a second.
Second.
Second from Mike. Any discussion? Laura Lee, will you please call the roll?
Stu Boyd,
Aye.
Denise Chapman,
Aye.
Lori Goebel,
Aye.
Alexandra Lessa,
Aye.
Mike Scholl.
Aye. All right. So the vote was 5-0 in favor of approving the agenda. We'll move to agenda item number 3, which is the school presentation from Coyote Ridge Elementary School. So, welcome.
All right, thank you. Welcome, well, I should say the same. Welcome to Coyote
Yeah,
Ridge.
thank you.
So, thank you for the opportunity to present to the board. We always appreciate, I'm gonna stand right in front of you.
You're fine.
We always appreciate the opportunity to share some of the good things that are going on here at Coyote Ridge. As an IB World School, we also like to take the opportunity to do a little board education, as it were, as we have some folks that are new, and it's also a good thing to just keep it front of center. So we're going to talk about an IB Wellness Night that we did recently, a night of learning for families. And if you'll go forward, I'll talk a little bit about IB. So the International Baccalaureate Program, the continuum here in Thompson is 3 schools. So Coyote Ridge is a IB primary years program school, so that's grades pre-K through 5. The middle years program is at Lucille Irwin Middle School, and that's grades, the middle years program is 6 through 10. All of the grades at Irwin are part of the middle years program, and 2 of the grades at Loveland High School are part of the middle years program. And then the third is the diploma program, which is grades 11 and 12. So that's the IB continuum here in Thompson School District. So a real quick history of the IB primary years program here at Coyote Ridge. So when we opened as a school in 2008, the school board charged us with the task of becoming an IB World School. And so we did a lot of good work around that. That was before my time, but they did a lot of good work around that. We became a candidate school in 2011. In 2013, we had a verification visit. Being part of the IB program, it's about how we do things, but there's also a definite level of criterion and a certification that they do to make sure that we are walking the walk, not just talking. And so we became an authorized school in June of 2013. And then in IB schools, about every 4 to 5 years, you go through another round of authorization where you do self-study as a building to determine like how are we doing relative to our goals, and then we share that with the IB team. Practitioners, experts come and visit our school. They talk to every teacher, they visit every classroom, they talk to parents, they talk to staff, and so that evaluation visit has happened a couple of times, most recently in 2023. I'm going to let you read the IB mission statement just for a moment to give you a sense of what IB is about. So this is the overarching mission statement, and the next slide we'll talk about what does it look like in practice in a really quick thumbnail sketch. So one of the keys is an inquiry-based instruction. Children are naturally curious, and so we want to harness that curiosity to help guide them as we go through the learning. Something to know is that what we teach at an IB school at the primary years level and the middle years level is the same as at every other Thompson school. IB is about how we teach it rather than what we teach. And so inquiry-based instruction is one example of how we teach it. International mindedness is a core tenet where we want to make sure that all of our students and staff understand that we are part of an international world. And we also have a commitment to student action and student agency. At our school, we like to call it voice, choice, and ownership. Because as you know, when you have voice and choice and ownership over how you're going to complete a task, it gives you a better sense of or desire to want to do that and more agency around that. Transdisciplinary learning, what that means is through our instruction, through how we instruct, we help students see the connections across the different content levels. As you know, in the real world, there's not a science time, and an English time, and a PE time, and a math time. And so while we have all those subjects, we do a lot of training, a lot of collaboration to help students see the connections across the disciplines. And then all IB schools have what's called Mother Tongue or Language A and Language B instruction, and so we have Spanish offered for all students, K-5. Another thing about IB is the whole child approach, particularly at this level. The primary years program focuses on developing students' social, emotional, physical, cognitive, creative, alongside academic achievement. At Coyote Ridge, we're proud to be a high achievement and high growth school, and it's also true that we value the whole child, and so you'll never find us keeping a kid out of PE because he needs to make up a math test. It's really about seeing the whole child and nurturing all of their skills. If you can go to the next one, please. So what I'd like to share with you or present to you is at this recent event we had it was a whole staff effort. We had practically the whole school, lots of families, and essentially all staff members were part of it. We have two people that are here that are going to share with you about it. Brittany Hansen is our counselor, and Aria Featheroff is one of our 5th grade students who are going to kind of walk you through what it was.
I'm 4th grade.
4th grade.
You could have left early.
Thank you.
Arya, can you tell our guests about IB Wellness Night?
It was a night where families could come and learn about the IB skills and ATL skills and how to be like healthy.
So IB Wellness and Social Emotional Learning?
Yeah, there are a lot of stations.
Yeah, this is quite the list. Did you have a favorite station?
My favorite was self-management. It's where you learn to pack your own backpack using a checklist.
Yeah, that was a really good one. The next one on here was also a fan favorite, our movement room, which is a newly designed space that helps our students regulate their bodies and emotions during the school day.
Miss Hansen, you should tell them about the visitors who came to our school.
Yeah, so we brought in experts from the community, and we talked about the following 3 slides. So we brought in gun safety from Community Justice Alternatives and nutrition from our TSD Nutrition Services, and also our final one, we brought in Lucille Irwin Middle School and Loveland High School, who presented and talked about our IB Continuum.
And for each station you visited, you earned a stamp for a passport to win a prize.
Did you win a prize?
I won rock climbing with Mrs. Sandlin.
Wow, that sounds pretty awesome. I bet you'll be at our next family night.
Okay, so that's the information about our IB Wellness Family Night. If anyone had any questions, we'd be happy to take those.
All right. Does anybody have a question? And then we'll give everybody a chance. Does anyone have a question to kick us off? Go ahead, Lori.
I just want to compliment Aria on, she hardly used her notes, so that was, did you practice a lot for presenting tonight?
A little bit.
A little bit?
She's a good public speaker.
And then, I was just curious about both the sleep hygiene and the gun safety or firearm safety. Somebody wanted to share about what those two were about.
Yeah, I can share about those. So we realized that as part of wellness, one of the things that impacts a lot of kids is accidental firearm discharges. And so we reached out and talked to people in the community who volunteered to bring us gun locks and present a video that was made by Larimer County called Be Awkward. And so that video ran during the whole time, and they got a chance to connect with families to talk about ways to talk with your kids about safe handling
And
of
then
firearms.
what about the sleep hygiene? What
So
is that?
sleep
That is-
hygiene
Sure.
is really important. It's basically the way that we treat sleep. So ensuring that you have a good environment to sleep in, that your sleep environment is set for just sleep and not other like video games. So your bed is for sleep and not for other things. And then like education about how much sleep kids get at this age and how much they need.
And not to put Aria on the spot, but do you have a good place to sleep at night? Do you have practicing that sleep hygiene?
Yeah, I actually kind of had to get a like weird mattress thing because the springs on my bed were going like really wonky. So, yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Mike, do you have anything you'd like to?
Yeah,
Say or ask?
just a couple questions real quick. By the way, very well done. You are a good public speaker, a great public speaker, I'll say. So I really appreciate you coming out and sharing your experience. Explain to me because I like to cook, so I gravitated to the farm to table. What does that mean, and how does that express itself within as one of the areas that you had highlighted?
Yeah, so we actually had a couple different nutrition stations. So we had one which talked about your plate of food and what goes on your plate. TSD Nutrition Services helped us out with some of the food that they provide here at school, and so they got a chance to educate where food comes from that gets served here at our school, both to the kids and to the families.
And the other question I had was, my son, or actually both my sons went through went to Irwin, and part of it, the IBS. Do you find that that's kind of that having that designation or having that here draws families or into this school? Is that something that you see?
Yes,
I'm
yeah.
curious.
Short answer is yes. The slightly longer answer is, so most parents don't know much about IB. And truthfully, most teachers that we hire coming in don't know much about IB. The reason I think it draws people in is because what it creates is a unifying theme and structure of like really high quality educational practices, as well as high expectations, high levels of support. The result of that is a truly highly functioning school. And so that is the reputation that we've been able to create and support over the years. And so I would say that because we're an IB, what I often say is the better we become as an IB school, the better we are as a school. And so having the IB moniker name, some people who are kind of aware that that's something prestigious, that creates some curiosity to have them come in and gives me an opportunity to give them a tour. But the biggest thing that is able to draw and attract and retain families is that by how we do IB, by how we do our work, we're creating and maintaining a truly high quality education, both from an academic standpoint and also social emotional, making sure students have great opportunities.
Thank you.
Alexander?
Have you done a wellness night before, or was this the first time?
So this was our first wellness night. We've done different nights before. We've done math nights and literacy nights and IB nights and things like that. And so this was our first time doing this.
So I guess, two questions. Was one, why did you decide to go this way, rather than like the math or whatever?
Mhm.
And then, do you think you'll continue in the future?
Yeah, great question. So, so part of our school unified improvement plan is focusing on sense of belonging, student well-being, and so it connected very, very closely with that. We also, because we've recently done literacy and math, it made more sense to do, we in the same way that I respectfully said I want to educate the board about IB, it's something we need to constantly share with parents, like what is different about IB. And so it's a great way to communicate and share that as well. With regard to doing further ones, I expect that we will. And what's also true is when you get new curriculum, it just depends on the circumstances of the year.
Thank you.
Denise, and then I'll wrap up.
So I love seeing that both Irwin and Loveland High were here as part of this, since it is a continuum program. Are there other opportunities where that takes place throughout the time where there's interaction between the different IB schools?
Yeah, great question. So we have a very strong continuum. We meet every month, and so yes, we do. In fact, we had Loveland High School students here. It was a couple of months ago, talking with our 5th grade students about what it means to be in the diploma program. And so we find opportunities like that. We also support each other when, so for example, we'll have exhibition coming up here in a month or so, and you'll all be invited to that. They will come and they will actually bring some of their students to see our exhibition. Similarly, at the middle years program, they do, it just popped out of my head, I was about to say it. It'll come to me. I'm sorry? Oh, I thought someone said something. And so they do a similar kind of thing, and so we bring our kids over there. Something else that's in the works, and timing is always an issue, is we want to get our teachers connected. We've done this in the past, it hasn't been every year, where they are walking through the classroom and seeing what does it look like at the PYP, the NYP, the diploma program. Something else I would mention is, for the last 3 years in a row, on the collaboration day coming back from winter break, we've had a big continuum professional development day where we are working on specific ideas, skills, concepts, and mixing the teachers together so they can learn from each other and about each other's program.
That's great. One follow-up question. What's the cost to the district to have IB in the district?
Do you have an idea off the top of your head, Sarah?
I do not off the top.
We can get that information for you. I know we review it on a regular basis. We meet as a group to kind of talk about IB. And I will say, IB can be an expensive program to run. Our folks at our buildings do a really, really good job of trying as best they can to make it work within the financial constraints that exist. I couldn't say enough about the team and what they try to do to make it happen within the financial constraints that exist. But
yeah, I'm very pleased with the support we've received. And something else that we do at Coyote Ridge, which is really helpful, is our PTO has agreed that 10% of all fundraising for PTO is allocated toward supporting the IB program. And so that's a way that we're able to kind of crowdsource, so to speak, additional funding.
Nice.
All right, I'll wrap up. My first question is for you, and the question is, what do you enjoy most about the IB program?
I enjoy most that we get to learn different things rather than just like we have units, so we have a unit for everything. That means we focus on basically one big thing instead of just hopping around.
Okay. I'm going to ask the two adults the same question, and Dion, I'm going to start with you. I want you to give me just a very brief elevator speech of why IB is important here and why IB is important to the Thompson School District.
Sure. So one of the things I often say is that IB is both wide and broad and deep. And what it provides is it provides teachers with the skills to be able to, like I said, help students create their meaning and create understanding so that they are more capable learners, and as they matriculate through the program, more capable or more ready for their next step. I believe strongly in the inquiry-based instruction. When you have, Ari was talking about the units, and that's a unit of inquiry. And so engagement is a really important part of teaching. If the students are not engaged, it doesn't matter how good the curriculum is, doesn't matter how good the teacher is if they're not there. And so we do a lot of both planning, collaboration, and reflection and adjustment to ensure that our students are highly engaged and that we're teaching them at the very highest level. I'll give you an example. So each unit has something called a provocation. The provocation is like, what's the thing that's going to get my attention? So for example, in 4th grade, they'll have a unit, and one of the key concepts in that unit is around systems and how humans use systems in their lives. And so this usually takes place about a month into the school year, after the teacher's got everything set, right? How we do lunch count, how we do all these things. Well, on that day, when she comes in, she acts as if there's no system. There's no system. She's just waiting. And students start getting uncomfortable and trying to figure out, and then pretty soon I'm calling in and saying, Mr. So-and-so, I'm waiting for your lunch count. And she's like, I don't know what to do, Mr. Davis. And so the point is, it creates a lot of chaos. It's definitely memorable, but what it also does is it imprints and makes students curious about, like, oh, systems. And so then to carry that on, so here's a system. They have classroom systems. We have systems called government at the local, state, national level, right? In art, artists have systems. So the teacher might be in a unit where they're doing painting, and in a class where they would normally learn the color wheel or the primary colors, right? So we do that too, but we're going to pull this thread or this strand of this is how artists use systems. And so then in science, the curriculum, they might be learning about kingdom, phylum, class, genus, order, species, how organisms are categorized, but they're pulling that thread of this is a system of how scientists organize the world. Similarly, in music, they're learning about symphonies, and here's a system. That's one idea, that's one key concept of 2 to 3 key concepts in every unit, plus there's related concepts. And so, I don't want to go too deep. You asked for an elevator speech, I apologize.
Long.
It's a tall building.
It's a tall building, I appreciate it. But the point is, so students are highly engaged and they're learning at a critical thinking level rather than a surface level. I can tell you when I was teaching, it was very common to have what we called thematic units. And so a thematic unit is a way of trying to make sense of things. So in the fall, as a 4th grade teacher, we might be reading about, so we have a fall unit, and we're reading about Johnny Appleseed. And in science, you might be cutting into an apple and look at the seeds. And it's a very surface level kind of thing, as opposed to a conceptual understanding of how systems are used throughout the world. You can see what a difference that makes as far as like how their understanding is. So, your second question, I'll be briefer. How does it benefit our school district? Several ways. The IB program is 52 years old of best practices. When I learned IB, it really sounded to me like everything I've learned over the years, but I hadn't always done, about the best way to provide instruction and to really cement understanding and meaning. And so having the continuum from the primary years program to the middle years program to the diploma program allows us to have a lot of synergy with each other, support each other, and have students matriculate through that. I would also say that it is recognized as a very prestigious program, and it draws people in. And that's another way that is, I would say, a feather in the cap of the Thompson School District to be able to offer this high quality instruction and instructional programming here in our district.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to ask you to do the same thing. You obviously have a different role in the school than the principal.
Right.
So why is it important here, and how or why is it important to the district?
for me, it's really important. My son was educated and continues his education at an IB school in Poudre.
Oh.
And so I was very excited to come here. The focus on the whole child is a key part to why I'm here. I don't have to compete, and that's not always true for counselors in schools. And so we have ATL skills, which was mentioned earlier, is the approaches to learning, and so that's the work habits or life skills that kids get, and that is built into the IB program. And so a lot of the work that I do aligns right along with that. And so it's, instead of kind of like fighting for time as a counselor, I find that it's more of a collaborative effort among the whole staff. And I would say that's the main reason. And I would say that in the district, I think the reason I came here is because this was an IB school. That's why I applied.
Okay.
And so I think it attracts not only families, but I think it attracts, people in education who want to work in IB. It's a feather in your cap too, for sure.
All right. Well, thank you very much to the three of you. You've certainly increased our understanding of IB, and we appreciate the fact that you have given up part of your evening to be here with us, so thank you.
And we appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Stu, if I could say just a couple things.
Absolutely.
This breaking news, is our student aware of this breaking news that I'm
I
about to?
don't know.
So let me say a couple things. So over the course of whatever number of days now I've been in the Thompson School District, I've had a lot of opportunities to see Mr. Davis and his leadership on this campus, the way he has led the staff, the culture, the student culture, the staff culture, the instructional moves that are being made on a regular basis very intentionally to improve practices in this campus. So one of the very best principals that we have in our school district, and very passionate about IB and about the work that's happening at Coyote Ridge. And all of that is to be said in a way that is, we also have some not so great news that I get to provide to you all tonight. Mr. Davis is leaving us, the Thompson School District. We found out just today. He has pursued a position closer to home, closer to family in the Poudre School District, and they wisely snatched him up. And they have already announced it to their staff and to their school district. It's a huge loss for us, big shoes to fill. But we're also really happy for him because this felt to him like the next right move for his career and his family. Happy to let you say anything you want to say, but I felt like it was appropriate while we were here in his building to announce it. I don't let you guys say anything you want to say because we're very both sad to see him go, but also very happy for him and excited for this next step in his adventure. So anything you want to say?
Thank you for saying that. This is my 12th year in Thompson School District and here in this building, and it is and has been an amazing experience. It's been the best experience educationally in my career, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity to have led this school. And we have a great group of principal colleagues and district leaders that have really helped and supported us. And so I just want to say I really appreciate it. It's very bittersweet. I shared the news with staff this morning. That was hard, and it's all just very recent. That said, it does feel like the right move for me right now for a variety of reasons, as Dr. Held suggested. And so I just want to say thank you for the opportunity.
All right, thank you. Board, anything, comments?
Thank you, Dean.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you. All right. We will move on then to agenda item number 4, which is discussion items for upcoming board meetings. Item 4.1 is the 2026-2027 Joint Insurance Company Insurance Renewal Recommendation. And we have a panel who will speak to us about this.
I have some guests with me, Mr. President, members of the board, Dr. Heller, Tiffany Rogers, Chief Human Resources Officer. I am excited to introduce Dorothy Barnhart, our Benefits and Risk Manager, Andy Stevens, and Robert Jones, who are part of our JIC co-chairs, and they are going to present this evening all their hard work on our benefit renewal for the 2027 school year. So they have a lot of information and data I think that you've already gotten a chance to do, but Dorothy will discuss that and they'll be able to answer some questions. So, thank you.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board, Dr. Heller. I'm Dorothy Barnhart. I'm our Director of Benefits and Risk Management, and joined, as Mrs. Rogers said, by Mr. Jones and Mr. Stevens, who, may I say, could not do the work the JIC does without their dedication and support for the HR team and for the staff and the students of this district.
And before we go on, gentlemen, do you want to tell folks who are here who don't know what your positions are in the school district?
I'm Robert Jones. Thank you for having us. And I teach 4th grade at Berthoud Elementary School for a lot of years, a lot of great years. And I joined the JIC when my 25-year-old, almost 26-year-old twins were born, and had lots of questions to her predecessor. And they were like, you have lots of good questions. Why don't you join the JIC? And I've been on it for that many years since then, and I am co-chair.
That'll teach you to ask questions.
Yes.
And good evening, I'm Andy Stevens. I work in the Learning Services Division as the Director of Career and College Readiness for the district. And I joined JIC when I became a Central Administrator for the Thompson School District, looking for ways to become more involved as a leader in the district, and had developed a great relationship with Dorothy, and she said, hey, I need an administrative rep and a co-chair on my JIC. Are you interested in joining? And I said, sure. I have no idea what it is, but I'm all in. And that was 3 years ago, and it's been my pleasure to co-chair the committee with Robert and work very collaboratively with Dorothy, as I'm sure you guys have learned. Things are always interesting in the insurance world. So
sure.
Thanks for having us tonight. We're excited to share.
You bet. Dorothy, back to you.
All right, so we had quite a thick packet of information that we had provided for you all, but I'm just going to boil it down to what our recommendation is tonight. We are recommending the JIC voting members to discontinue all of the 3 current plans that we have. This move is to help minimize the significant increase of 13.5% that we would be facing to insurance premiums if we were to continue those 3 plans. In the discontinuing, we are looking to introduce the PPO Select 2, PPO 6, and the Kaiser 2500 plan. What these plans are, how they differ from the plans we are looking to discontinue is it increases the deductibles for each plan, and on the PPO 6 it does have a slight increase to the co-payments that our staff and our members would be paying for an office visit. We have a secondary plan for folks to use to supplement a insurance benefit that they have from another location. CBT, as you may recall, those of you who have been served on the board a couple years, CBT and TSD used to have a 100% participation requirement, and the hospital reimbursement plan helped us meet that requirement. We can't just drop it. That would increase our renewal by an additional 3%. So we are gradually sunsetting this plan off, but keeping it in place for those members who are enrolled. Beyond that, we are recommending that we continue to pay the PPO Select 2 life and dental premiums for full-time employees. This is in alignment with our board policy on fringe benefits and the negotiated agreement that we have with TEA, and a pro rata share of the Select 2 and the dental rate for our part-time employees. So currently, if you're 50%, we pay 50, you pay 50, all the way up to that 100% threshold. For those folks who are remaining on HRP, and that number dwindles every year as folks have life changes, we want to continue to play that full premium life and dental for those individuals. That plan, again, only kicks in the event that the staff member is hospitalized. And the last one is that we'll allow staff to apply the Select 2 premium to buy up to the PPO 6 or the Kaiser plan for either themselves or their dependent coverage. So the net effect of the renewal is about, we were able to bring that 13.5% through these changes down to 9.8% increase to the district. which is an increase of $1,919,567, bringing our total estimated cost to $21,506,987 for the 26-27 year. So I believe that's less than what Bob had
It is
presented.
less than we originally budgeted,
Which
is
I
good,
think
which is good.
that's good news.
All right, before I open it to the board for questions, I was able to attend the last JIC meeting. Alexandra wasn't able to attend. She's actually the board representative on the committee. And I was very impressed with not just the depth of interest, but the nature and the depth of questions that people asked and that you had answers for, and that there was truly an exchange of information. And I think probably everybody didn't agree, at least initially, but I think as the discussion ensued, everybody understood what the changes were and why they needed to be made. So with that, Denise, do you have any questions or comments?
Just thank you, this is hard work, and,
Yes.
you're balancing everybody and all their different life circumstances, and so, thank you.
Okay. Alexandra?
I think I have questions. I appreciate the work. It's been, I mean, I enjoy being part of the committee, and actually when I was driving home from the mountains while the meeting was on, and so was listening in my car with my son.
Online.
And so he got a great crash course in insurance, and it was actually really interesting. I thought he'd be bored out of his mind, but we listened, and it was a long meeting too. Usually the meetings are like an hour, and this was close to 2 hours, I think. And so he listened the whole time, and then when it was over, he and I had a good conversation about a lot of the stuff and questions he had and stuff like that. So it was interesting. So yeah, thank you all. And I had sent a message to Stu and I think to Dorothy as well, knowing I wasn't necessarily going to be able to be there. And I was like, if they're not headed that way, make sure they think about, changing the plans. But I needn't have worried because that was in the works. So I think everybody really has the best interests of our employees, trying to do the best we can for them while, understanding that we do have financial constraints, and so everybody really tries to do the best with that.
All right.
Your son would be welcome anytime.
I don't know that he liked it that much.
Acronyms.
Yeah.
Maybe when Robert decides to step off the committee, maybe Isaac could take that spot.
Need a new co-chair.
Oh, yeah.
We'll be taking applications.
All right. Mike?
I just have a couple quick comments, and I would say I'm married to a twin, so I know the twins very well versed in that universe. I do, to echo whatever other people say, I really appreciate kind of taking it on. I'm sure can be a little tedious going through kind of benefit plans and kind of making those recommendations. The frustration I have is not with you or with the board, it's really with our healthcare system, which is wildly dysfunctional and overpriced, and it frustrates me. I appreciate the fact that you were able to bring the cost down to the district, but it doesn't bring the cost down. Somebody has to pay.
Yep.
And we have to pass that along, and I find that very frustrating, for many, many reasons, which I'm sure our board will get into kind of in the coming months. So I really appreciate that. I do have one just kind of very minor question, because did you ever explore the direct primary care model as an opportunity?
So we have, through our relationship with Colorado Employers Benefits Trust with CEBT, we actually have dedicated health centers that are operated by Marathon Health. One here in Loveland, just down the road from Loveland High, across the street from Dunkin' Donuts there on Garfield, that all of our members on the plan have access to. We had the pleasure of taking Cabinet there for a visit at the end of January. The months have gone really fast. And so they could see the center. Any services that our members receive within those four walls is free of charge to them. And the marathon model is very much about that advanced primary care. Lots of personal connection, follow-up visits, health coaching. So opportunities for folks, if they're willing to become engaged with the center, to really receive excellent care. I know there are a couple of us here at the table, myself
Huge
including,
fan.
that's my primary care provider anymore. And because I have a deeper relationship with the provider than I've ever had with a medical provider my entire life.
And I think that's the piece is, once any of our employees go to the health center, it's unlike your regular doctor in the way of where it's like you almost have a time thing, like they gotta go real fast and they gotta get next, and you feel none of that. It's like you're slotted for 20 whatever minutes, and 30 minutes, and there's no rush anywhere, and then people go and they leave there and they're like, that's amazing, and then they go share people, and then they go share people, and it's getting more and more widely used. I think to add with that too, that was one of the things we went out to bid this year, to see if we can reduce prices. There's not everybody in the country or even within our state that continues to use CEBT, but I kind of look at it as there is not a profit. You know what I mean? If that kind of makes sense. It's kind of like the city of Loveland. They're not trying to make a truckload of money off of this. It's I don't know. We tend to go out to bid, and you could almost predict that certain companies would not even, they looked at our paperwork, went, not a chance. We don't even need to bother even trying to give you a bid, because there's no way we can compete in price. But going back to, and if we would have switched, well, then we lose that clinic, which people are just, they fall in love with that clinic, and it's, because like I said, and you get the stability, because people go in and out of doctors, because you know how the healthcare system, I mean, and then we had COVID and all of that, and it made it rough for them too. And you never saw the same doctors even. These people, they're the same nurse practitioners that have been there for years. So that's just kind of going back to, we really like that clinic, and it saved us money.
I appreciate that. I experienced it kind of through my work, and I think it's a good alternative. You know, nothing's ideal, but I will say my twin sister-in-law is a doctor in Colorado, and I hear all the nightmare that you talk about the assembly line and meeting quotas and stuff, so I get it, I hear. So anyway, I just don't want to make myself more frustrated talking about it.
If I could, I just will talk about CEBT. My family is very well known in the CEBT clinic, and I've only been here for not even a full year yet. We find our way into that place, it feels like every week, for something, and it is a phenomenal resource. I think it's the one area where we have identified we really need to figure out a way to make sure all of our employees truly understand the benefit that comes with this. I think, I'll be honest, even when we took cabinet, I think a good chunk of cabinet was like, I had no idea the opportunities that are provided within this clinic, and for free, essentially. And so we will do more, especially maybe in the fall, as we do some type of fall convocation with staff, try to make sure that we're getting information in front of them in a variety of different ways, because we do really believe, even if you love your primary care physician, this still is a great addition to your healthcare team that's at no cost to you. So it's a great piece of our benefits.
Can the board avail ourselves of this too?
I'd be happy to take you for a visit, but you do have to be a member on the health plan.
Okay.
But they are very excited, the partners, to show off and talk about the center and what it does. So I would be happy to.
Yeah, it's great.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Lori?
Just a clarifying question, as far as, so the full-time employees, that's paid 100% by the district?
For the PPS Select plan, currently and hopefully going forward.
Which is the cheapest option.
Yes.
Okay, and then the part-time was a 50?
So it's based on the
depends.
individual's FTE. We have folks anywhere from 50-50 to 90-10, just depending on their individual.
And how much did those deductibles increase?
So on about $500 for each one of them. So we went from a $1,500 and I'll speak to individual deductibles. We went from a $1,500 on the Select to a $2,000 on the Tier 1. That is a 2-tier plan. So the increase was greater on Tier 2, which is not as as rich of a benefit, but it offers some flexibility. On PPO 6, we'll go from a $2,500 to a $3,000 on the single plan, and on the Kaiser, it actually increases $1,000 from $1,500 to $2,500. Co-pays stay the same on the Kaiser plan and on the select plans, and on the PPO 6 plan, they do migrate up in a $5 increment to a $50 visit versus the $45.
I saw Laura Lee try to pull it up because I got that same error message, so thank you for that information.
It opens on the public side, but it doesn't open on our internal side. Yeah, not your fault, something on the program side.
Lori, anything else?
That's it. Thank you.
So let me conclude the board remarks by, Dorothy, thank you for your years of leadership in this position. Gentlemen, thank you for your years of membership on the committee, and I know there are other folks too who invested a good share of their life in making sure that Thompson employees are insured as well as we can afford to have them insured. So thank you very much. And Dr. Heller, we will vote on this.
That is correct.
Accepting this
We will ask you to take action on at the March 25th.
March
meeting.
25th.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I think one of the questions I'd like to add to
Yeah,
that
go
is
ahead.
I know that we are coming up close on the open enrollment time period too, so I think the team today was hoping to get a sense if there would be additional questions that may be asked at the board meeting, that we could come with any questions to be prepared for, hopefully a move forward kind of a vote, because we want to make sure we get out to communicate to staff as
Sure.
quickly as possible, so it changes.
All right.
So if we could get a sense if there's
So
any other
hearing
things
what
that you may
Tiffany,
want to have asked.
hearing what Tiffany said, anybody have anything to contribute? We can think about this and
Yeah.
Please email, yeah.
Yes, email us if there's
You
any
or
additional
Dorothy or
questions,
both of you?
concerns.
Dorothy, yeah.
Dorothy, okay.
Yes.
All right,
Thank you guys.
Great, thank you
Thank you.
guys.
all right. Let's move on to agenda item 4.2, which is the Turner Middle School resolution authorizing the sale of real property and approving a contract. Good evening, Tom.
Good evening, Mr. President, Board of Education, Dr. Heller, Todd Piconi, Assistant Superintendent Operations. So tonight for discussion is the resolution for both authorizing the sale of real property and approving the contract. A few years ago, the town of Berthoud came to us and asked that as they develop their arboretum and our school site, if we'd be interested in looking at selling the parcel in between the two, which is actually the third page on the memo. So it was, when they came to us, it was actually very attractive because this area is very maintenance intensive. It's not utilized by the school. And we did do a conceptual study in 2024, looking at if the school was added on to for future growth, if that section of parcel would be needed. So tonight there's really two pieces that we're looking at, is the approval of the 6.69 acres for a total of $100,300, and the resolution to go through the process to actually sell the land. I do want to add a couple, I know there's been some questions out there. So I do want to clarify a few of those. So one is, because we're selling this to a political subdivision, the process for putting it through a bidding process and claiming it as surplus property does not actually exist. Within our board policy, DN, it does. We are in line with that, so I just want to clarify that. There's actually some deed restrictions because it's a public entity that if we were to even look at selling it out to a developer, it's highly unlikely that anyone would be able to develop it because of how we acquired the land. There's deed restrictions on the land, so that's why the town came to us and said, this is really a dead piece of land between the two properties, would you sell it? The third thing is the value. It varies quite greatly. So both the town and us kind of came up with two values. So they had an assessment done, we had an assessment done, and that was a starting point because it's not, you know, a typical piece of land that you can take comp at and say, okay, here's what it's worth. There's some complications to it because the deed restrictions, where it's at in zoning, so it's actually not zoned for. Really, it's in what's called a transitional zoning, so you can't, the town's saying, we don't know what it's gonna be, because they're developing really the natural area in ours, so we can't actually say that it could be zoned to anything else. So the value of it was very, I would say, interesting to get to, because we had two ends of the spectrum, like 0 on one end of just, deed the land over to us, upwards of 40-some plus thousand, depending on how you look at the land. So, I want to state that. And the other piece that, is important when we look at the school, there's a continuum now from the school to this arboretum, which is an educational attraction. So if we didn't do this, it kind of like be looking over the river. We'd have where the school site is and the track. We'd have a large chunk of land, and then the park would really start. So the town came and said, well, also this will give a place for students, to learn, and like a little nature walk. And they're interested in actually, making the school kind of part of the design and how it interacts with the school. So in that's there's a couple of additional items on art in the memo. And Lily, if you go down to the drawing there. Yeah, so it's that L piece there, so you can see why just by looking at that's why it's pretty complicated, even if it could be rezoned to develop, and then the deed restrictions on that lot. So we will come forward for approval hopefully next time, but are there any questions?
Is it west of the track?
It is west of the track, yes.
Okay.
So on the lower left corner, that's the town's rec center.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna.
that's not the school, yes.
Okay, that makes much more sense,
Yes.
because I was thinking that's the school, and then I was like, so then we're gonna be like cut off from the track through this
Oh.
arboretum. I was like, that seems very odd to me. So where is the school in this picture?
The school's actually on the top of the page, just up from the track. It's actually not on that, so you can see where the track is there.
Okay,
The school starts just
just above
Yeah,
that.
above that,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, okay. And so this, I guess, what's the purpose or the rationale of like selling the whole L rather than just selling like that section across the bottom? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just to make it one, because then we're chopping it up more, and then we have, what we're trying to get away from too is we're maintaining that like all the time. And so even if we were to cut that off, now we're kind of still spending money on just maintaining that little section,
Okay.
which for future growth and development of the school site, we wouldn't ever need it.
And what's
we will save in terms of just maintenance cost and time by not owning that piece of property more, because we are mowing and maintaining all of that property.
Yeah, that was my question. What's involved in the maintenance of that area right now?
So it's weed control, it's mowing, I mean, the general, everything that you could imagine with a piece of land. We're out there, even when it rains, we've got to, if it's muddy, all the different things you have to do with land, maintenance does have to go take care of.
Okay.
So for a piece of land that the school isn't using, and there's no plan to use it.
There's no plan, and like I said, the board in 2023, we did a study of the site to show
I remember that.
the expansion of Turner,
Mhm.
in 10 years whenever we need it, and that was never in play.
Yeah.
It's so outside of the parcel that we need, it's not useful for the expansion.
Okay, thank you. Mike?
Yeah, thank you for that. I do, I mean, in looking at it, because I know there was some question of like, could you develop it for housing? But you really couldn't. I mean, it's not serviced by even a street at this point, and you would need a second point of access for fire code, and so and it's not. There's so many things that would present challenges. So I understand the rationale for kind of selling it to the town, and I wouldn't, as far as the price goes, I could tell stories, but I haven't been part of this. But you spend there's a kind of a value, and then there's a price that people pay for land, and so I understand. I'm not going to second guess the negotiation and stuff. I've looked at it; it seems fairly reasonable. My only item that I would push for included is just some kind of a reverter. That if the town doesn't develop it as the Arboretum, that ownership reverts back to the school district at some point. I think if the intent is for the, you know, for the town, or the, you know, the town, it looks like a really cool park, and, you know, and I think that's great amenity for, you know, the community and for the school, but, you know, if 5 years from now, all of a sudden, it's like, they get a big offer and they're gonna go put, you know, housing, and then it becomes a commercially developed, that we at least get some a fair compensation for that, if the intent changes.
Well, I think we could do a first right of refusal, you know, we'd have the first right to take it back if they did want to, you know, if for some reason something fell apart and they wanted to do something different with it. Yeah, but again, there's also deed restrictions on it, which, that's a whole nother hurdle that's in front of.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure how, I mean, you could clear the title, I mean, there's ways to do that, but I hear you on that, but I would just, for me, it would be more comfortable if there was some guarantee, or at least that, you know, if it doesn't get developed, that we can,
Yeah, we can put that in the contract, yeah.
Thanks, Mike. Lori?
Thank you, Mr. Picone, for answering most of the things you did answer, as far as like with the deed restrictions and then the city coming to us. As far as like water rights and stuff, is there anything affiliated with that? No?
No, that's all excluded from it, yeah.
Okay. And then my guess, you just mentioned mowing, so there's no irrigation or anything going to that area from the school?
No, there's not. Well, I take that back. There's a small, there used to be a joint use irrigation line that runs through there with the town that becomes their issue when this becomes hopefully theirs, so.
I will just say that I've had conversations with town manager and the assistant town manager about this. They're very eager to partner with us to make sure that this property can be a valuable piece of property for the school, where there can still be learning outside classroom opportunities and things like that for the school. So they're excited about this project and wanting to make sure there's a real partnership with the school.
Mm-hmm. Denise?
I may have missed this, Todd, but is there an intention to open it up to like the neighborhood there and have a pathway through to the Arboretum?
Actually, the whole concept of that design is an open concept. You know, it encourages just really, it's the nature walk. Yes, I don't know if there'll be an intentional path to it, but just the nature of the design will allow that.
Yeah, I mean, because before it's just blocked off, you're gonna have to drive to get there.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and I know the town's gonna use part of the rec center, you know, for access and those pieces too.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah, sorry, I put the link on to the town. You don't have to click it out, but it does provide kind of more details around what it is and their plan as well.
My only comment is I'm completely on board with what Mike suggested and what he asked to be included in the contract, to be sure that the school would benefit from use or from development of this land, which the school would not benefit from if it turned out to be something commercial or something like that. So I'm certainly in favor of Mike's suggestion as well.
Great, yeah, we'll get it added.
All right.
Can I ask one more question?
Absolutely.
So, when we, like 2 years ago or some amount of time, there was the water, the ditch also in this area. Is that anywhere near this, or is that somewhere?
No, it's actually right, you know, that's part of, there's a little bit of irrigation that was mentioned
That,
that
okay,
kind
I
of
was
goes through
wondering if
that,
that was
yeah.
that ditch, okay.
And I mean, not a part of this, we're still working on a bigger raw water plan with the town, kind of outside of this, to see if we can satisfy some of the raw water issues in Berthoud.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Todd. Let's move to item 4.3, which is standard action consent items. Does anyone have any comments about either the personnel recommendations, the donation memo, etc.?
I do have one comment to make about the personnel records. Lori had asked a question, I think at the last board study session, about the timing of some of those. And so we did look into that. Typically what happens is the timing will happen, you'll receive what is due by Friday, This time then we'll do another update right before the board meeting, so there may be some additional folks that are added. I do believe doing some research that some were putting it in when someone gave us their resignation, and our licensed one was doing a little bit different, so we've updated that to include that now when we receive the resignation, like Dion today, that we would add that to that personnel recommendation going forward, so it'll capture some of
Go
those
ahead.
things.
Will there be a delineation then, obviously, you know, that these names are added or an asterisk or something, that these were added since the study session or something, or some way to denote that?
The date will reflect, like if Dion's will, it will
It will
either
be in the
be
day
today
order.
or tomorrow, so you can tell by the date on there.
Yeah.
After the.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mike, any questions about action consent? Lori, anything else? Denise?
No.
Alexandra? All right. I would ask if one of you would volunteer to read the donation memo at our March 25th meeting. Somebody, okay.
Unless you want to. Sure.
You want to do it? Good. All right, thank you. All right. That takes care of agenda item 4. We'll move to agenda item 5, which is the 2 reports. My legislative update, Mike's Laura update. So, Laura Lee, if you would bring up the report. At the last meeting of the CASB Legislative Relations Committee, those of us who are members of that were asked to get feedback from our boards about the item that I've listed for you in red. So I'll give you a chance to read it or reread it, and then I'm interested in feedback that I can report back to the group.
Thank you.
Yeah, great.
Can you tell us a little bit more about it? Like, it says reduce the amount of state assessment testing, like what would, like reducing CMAS or reducing?
It could involve reducing CMAS. It could also involve reducing local assessments, because some districts do quite a bit with local assessments. I think that's about all I could tell you in addition to what's printed there. I think something that's certainly important and something that boards would want to consider is the third bullet, that it could potentially reallocate funds spent on assessment if we weren't assessing as much. And I guess I'm thinking more now from the state level. That money in our time right now, we're looking for money just about any place we can that's legal. It might offer some additional funds that could be used in some way.
I can just add that the current version of the bill is vague enough to be dangerous in many ways. It talks a little bit about essentially requiring summative assessments at the least amount possible while still measuring student achievement and meeting federal requirements, and encouraged, if this were to pass, for Colorado to apply for a waiver to the federal requirements that are there for assessment. So it is not very specific in terms of what assessments might go away, what assessments might stay, just that to the minimum extent practicable to reduce the amount of standardized assessments that are being given. So not a lot of real detail in the bill itself. Right?
You're right, and it's early in this bill's life also. It hasn't been discussed to a great extent, et cetera. But I think what the committee wants from our board is a feeling as to whether, once things are worked out in terms of details, how do you feel about the concept of what you're looking at? I don't think we necessarily need to go down the line on this. somebody would just like to make a comment?
I'd say the concept is good. As you said on point 3, that those funds, then whatever, would be spent on assessment wouldn't be taken away, but maybe kept at the district level for reallocation.
Okay.
I'm not sure how that all plays out because
Okay, I made a note of that. Board, anybody else have a comment?
Just on that, it would be good if we could keep the money. I'm not sure
Yes,
that's their intention.
so you're kind of echoing what
Yeah,
What-
exactly.
Lori said, okay? Any other comments? And of course, we're not voting on this, all I'm gathering from you is feedback. Okay,
I mean, I guess I would just say, it's hard to say with the vagueness of it.
yeah,
If it's a good idea or not. So I am withholding judgment.
Conceptually, fewer or less testing sounds good,
yeah,
but it's all in the details.
yeah,
Yeah, I think really a good chunk of this is really specifically targeting summative assessments. So we're talking end-of-year assessments, not necessarily things that districts do like benchmark assessments and formative assessments, but really that state end-of-year assessment is really what it appears to be targeting. I think we're all gonna watch to see what this actually looks like, what language gets added as it's going through its process. I would say in general, there's less of these standardized end-of-year summative assessments. I think a lot of educators would get behind that idea in general, but a lot to be worked out still.
I remember in an earlier discussion of this, I think it's 5th grade, somebody presented information, somebody from CASB presented information that I believe it's 5th graders are tested for 15 hours a year, and people thought that was excessive. So I think that's probably what prompted the creation of this bill. But I did take notes on all the comments that were made, and I will report those. Okay? Then the other thing is, Laura Lee, would you put up the budget update? Yeah.
That's it.
Okay.
So this is an update provided by CASB on the state of school finance and so on. Hopefully you've had a chance to read this. If I think anyone thinks that the situation is not bleak, this will change their mind in terms of just how serious the budget shortfall is. One bit of good news, and Dr. Heller and I talked about this today. Tomorrow, a bill is going to be dropped that will propose increasing the spending cap. And then if the bill actually is passed, if it goes through the legislature, then the essence of the bill is that the bill then would become part of the November election because it involves changing spending. And so there's a press conference tomorrow at the Capitol called Raise the Cap. And so I will keep you posted as information becomes available on this. As I said, the bill hasn't been introduced yet. It's supposed to be introduced tomorrow. But I did attend a Zoom meeting, a discussion of a coalition of groups and organizations that were very much in favor of this. I think there's a lot of positive interest in it. So I'll keep you posted.
Yeah, I would say Colorado School Finance Project has been providing us with a lot of information. CASE has been providing us a lot of information about this potential statewide ballot measure. There's a lot of, I think it's polled very well in terms of people understanding it, liking it, believing that it's a right move for public education. I think once we see the final, this version of the bill is announced, I think there's at least a conversation at the board level about whether there's a desire to do something like a board resolution.
Yep.
Encouraging legislators to pass this legislation so it does end up on the ballot in November. So that can certainly be something we talk about potentially in April. If you'd like to, if there's a desire, we could put together some type of a resolution for the board to consider.
And at that point, the bill will have been introduced.
Yeah.
we'll know actually what it says, and initial feedback will have been received. So this Zoom session that I attended also presented another option, and I don't know, I know almost nothing about this except the term, and Dr. Heller may be able to elaborate on it. Another option is the graduated income tax. There did not seem to be support or much interest in that. And I can't explain that to you, and maybe you
I'm
know.
probably not the best person to explain it either, other than I can tell you, Bob could probably do it, a few other people in the room might be able to do it, but I will say, yeah, there's two separate kind of groups that are pushing these two pieces of legislation into our statewide ballot measure. You have this group for this raising the spending cap on Tabor, then you have essentially this progressive, income tax idea. There's also a lot of conversation between those two folks that both of those things on the ballot at the same time would not be a good thing for either of those two measures, but neither necessarily are wanting to remove theirs from consideration for November, so there's a lot to be decided obviously in the next couple of months, but yeah, there's a lot of concern that those are, in many ways, will be competing measures for voters' attention and not necessarily a good thing for either of them.
Yeah, what was stated at the meeting was the hope would be that both of them would not advance because it would kill both of them, and that we would want the one that actually benefits K-12 education the most. So, thank you, and Dr. Heller and I will keep you posted on that. So we'll move then to 5.2. Actually, let me stop just a second. Mike, did you want to talk about the bill that's involved with Laura that was actually part of my report? Do you want to say anything about that? It's SB 26-129, mitigate impacts of tax increment financing. It's a bill that Janice Marchman is actually introducing.
Yeah, I looked at that, and I think, it allows for the taxpaying entities to I don't know how they phrased it, but when you set up a plan area, either through a DDA now, I think, or an urban renewal, you have to submit an impact statement. And there's some vagaries around what that needs to include, but a lot of it is how it impacts services. So if you're adding more kids and impacts to schools and with counties, it's different set of services, and how that's kind of calculated and to kind of determine kind of obviously the fiscal impact it's going to those entities. And my understanding of the bill, it just allows those entities like us as the school district to kind of submit I don't know if you call it a dissenting opinion, but the question I have is, just by virtue of doing that, does it somehow hold up or give any leverage for that? Or to the creation of those plan areas or DDA under urban renewal. And so I guess it's like a bureaucratic step, but I don't understand what the intent is or what. So I'd like to just keep an eye on it to see if it has legs, and if there's some reason or some rationale that maybe they're thinking of, but other than that, I don't, I think at this stage it's pretty neutral for
we're one of the only parts of the state which is actually impacted by a URA. That was discussed at our last committee meeting. I think maybe there are 6 school districts in the entire state of Colorado that are actually impacted by this, and that's probably why our senator is interested in making sure that the information is dealt with fairly and adequately and so on. So again, that's Senate Bill 26-129 if you want to review that. And this is one that, unless the bill would be killed for some reason, postponed indefinitely, this is something that I will definitely bring you information back on again. Okay, now, anything that you would like to add to the report?
5.2.
Yeah.
No, I'll be brief on it. I think, the obviously they're working through the Ernst & Young report. No decision was made. It doesn't, at this stage, it's kind of, there's not really a big impact on the school district one way or the other. I think the expiration of that urban renewal plan area is, becoming, in the not too distant future, and I think we'll get some financial benefit, perhaps not as much as people think, due to the way state funding, which is very frustrating. But the one area that's kind of minor area is that every year the Allura board elects officers, president or the chair and co-chair, and Jody Shattuck was replaced by Laura Light Kovacs. I think Jody was very, I give her a lot of respect. I think it was very frustrating, but I think she handled it very professionally, even though I could sense there was some frustration. But I put forth that either the chair or co-chair position should be reserved for one of the non-city of Loveland tax-paying entities. So either the school board representative, the county representative, or I think in the ambulance district, because we're a minority in the, because it's the city council. So I really felt like if we want to be good partners, that it should be expressed in some, either the co-chair position or chair. And I've actually proposed, I sent to the attorney an amendment to the bylaws that would memorialize that. So I'm going to push for that at the next meeting. I think they're anticipated in May or perhaps earlier, depending on what the chair, the discretion of the chair. Because I think agreeing to it in a meeting and saying yes, that sounds like a good idea is one thing, but memorializing it in the bylaws is another. And I think it's important, given the impact that I think either the county or the school district or the ambulance district has a position in either the chair or the co-chair. So.
And I believe you told me that the lower board won't meet again until May. Is that right?
Yeah, that's what they're suggesting. I'll speak off the cuff a little bit. I have a sense of frustration with how it's managed by the city because there's not dedicated staff, and I've expressed that frustration. I think that their communication and at least with as far as maybe perhaps the non-city council members is not very good, and I think some of that's born out of 11 years of experience with as well. So, but I think my understanding is that the next meeting is planned for May. But like I said, sometimes I feel that communication can be a bit lacking. But
all right.
So, but I'll stay on.
Okay. Thank you. That concludes agenda section 5 updates. We'll move now to study session discussion items, beginning with 6.1, early childhood new board member training.
Good evening, Mr. President, Dr. Heller, members of the board, Sarah Rasmussen, Assistant Superintendent of Learning Services, and this evening, Lam Caro, Director of Early Childhood, is going to provide a brief training. This is a requirement. As we have new board members, we provide a training regarding your obligations to fulfill the requirements of Head Start. So this evening, I will turn it over to Lam Caro.
So, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Mr. President, Dr. Heller, members of the board. I am Lam Caro. I've been the Director of Early Childhood now for 12, 13, well, some amount of years. And so one of the things I do want to share is that we do have a strong program, and part of it is because of the connection that the Board of Education has also with our shared governance group, the Policy Council. So that is also made up of parents, and between the two, there's a lot of accountability to ensure that we're in compliance with all the federal regulations. And so with that, the memo, I think, hopefully covered the majority of the things that you need to know. But I do want to emphasize that it is about oversight, and it's about making sure that we report program outcomes to you when necessary, and then any big significant decisions go through both the Policy Council and through the Board of Education. But because the Board of Education is the governing body for the grant, it also has a fiduciary responsibility to the federal government. So I do want to point out First of all, many of the Head Start performance standards, which if you started diving into that, there is a lot there. And the good thing is a lot of the policies and procedures already exist in our Board of Education policies. So we're able to leverage that and tie it into the work that we have for our own program, and the ones that don't, we have policy for already. Again, I just want to mention the piece of accountability. So currently you see things such as our monthly report from our policy council that come to you. And then at different times, like at the beginning, or sorry, at the end of the year, you'll see the results of our program outcomes that we determined prior spring. Some other things that have come, a big part of this is the fiscal piece. Whenever major decisions, particularly around the Head Start grant itself, need to be voted on by you and the policy council, that'll come to you in June. And you'll have an opportunity to give feedback, and then again, I'll ask for your approval at the later June meeting. One of the things that you should know is that, especially with our program outcomes, we're focused on school readiness. So that means literacy, math, and social and emotional preparedness for kindergarten and beyond. So we really put a lot of effort in making sure that we're not only thinking about how they're academically, but how are they ready to interact with each other and be able to develop their executive functioning, their self-regulation to be successful in kindergarten. So those are the big pieces, and then any other things that come up will, so for example, although I don't anticipate it this year, we normally get a cost of living adjustment that I don't think will come through this year just because of the state of the economy right now. But for things like that, I'll come with different opportunities for us to explore. So there's my 3-minute speech on Head Start performance standards. Questions for me?
Lori, start with you. No? All right, Denise, anything?
No.
Alexandra?
I don't think so, thank you.
Mike?
I don't have any questions, but thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And I don't either, so you've dazzled us. We just have nothing to ask that you didn't cover.
But I would encourage you, if you do have questions, to ask.
Okay, we will. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're next. Don't go anywhere, Sharon, you're gonna stay here.
I'm just moving over this direction.
You're just moving chairs?
Yeah.
All right.
Moving this way.
So item 6.2 is family school community partnerships. And I know several of us attended at least one session. Some of us attended a couple of sessions at CASB that dealt with this particular issue, and we're very interested in learning about what the Thompson School District does in regard to these partnerships. So with that as an introduction.
Yes, thank you. And I am not gonna stay up here. There's a team that is going to come up and speak to this work. But this evening, we have our Director of Federal and State Programs, Jesse Chiarina. He is going to be up here with the team. And this actually was a request of our Board of Education.
Yes.
We had an opportunity to present during our Thompson Leadership Academy, and we wanted to be able to provide some information for the board in its entirety. So at this point, I will turn it over.
Jesse, would you introduce the members of the
Definitely. Actually, I'll just have them introduce
Or
themselves.
are they going to introduce themselves? That's fine too.
That'd be better. Jesse Tijerina, Director of State and Federal Programs. I'm just going to pass it on to Brandy to my right.
Randy Stott, the principal of Lincoln Elementary School.
Gabby Salvador, FSCP specialist at our Family Center.
And I'm Dan Cowgill, I'm one of the assistant principals at Mountain View High School.
Ready to go? Let's do it. So let's take a few minutes and read this, at the personal level. When I read a quote like that, I think about what other words come to mind when I think about the word community. I think one of the biggest things when I think about family, school, and community partnership work, which is FSCP work, is our understanding of a community and the community that we serve. You know, I believe that a strong educational system is rooted in its community, and vice versa. A strong community is rooted in an educational system. And oftentimes when we think about family, school, and community or parent engagement within the school setting, we tend to create things on our own outside of the conversation with our families and our students, and then we invite folks. But I'm also of the belief that being invited does not mean being included, right? So this is more about inclusion and really moving in from low impact strategies that we often do that are traditional to really high impact strategies and reimagining how we engage community in the spaces that we navigate day to day. Because we do know that there are a lot of circumstances that our families are facing. You know, prior to COVID and post-COVID, they've been elevated. We can go to the next slide. So I kind of want you to have that frame of mind. And at the core in the foundation, it lives within federal programs. That's why it lives in the area that I'm blessed to work with, which is in Title I. And in Title I, as you can tell, there are certain indicators and criteria that we need to meet to ensure that we have stakeholders engaged to make the decisions of how we inform funding for the activities that live within improvement grants. Improvement grants include Title I, Title II, Title III, Title IV, our McKinney-Vento grant, which serves our unaccompanied and our homeless population, our ESG grant, which serves our migrant, our foster, and also unaccompanied youth, and other improvement dollars that are determined by the performance of a school and their needs. But in every one of those improvement grants, there is an area where stakeholder engagement that they must be engaged to help you inform the activities. So this is the Title I piece. If you wanted to go to the next slide. And this is really the major improvement strategy goal that we have within the Title I consolidated application. So you have in your district UIP and your school UIPs major improvement strategies, but also you have them in the Title I grant. And of course our strategies will align with the DUIP and the majority of our school UIPs. But here's the strategic plan. We do a lot of braiding of funding because there's a lot of money that is actually involved in engaging families, right? You gotta show up. One of them's food. And thankfully, we have a great district that supports us through general funds with a certain amount that we can engage families in food. We also have Thompson Educational Foundation that also supports us with emergent needs and other types of needs for high mobility. But really, this is what it lives into, the braiding of dollars of different federal programs at the state and the federal level. And really what we've done is within the Title I grant, there's an area that's called Parent Set Aside. And in Parent Set Aside, there's a certain percentage that you need to spend as a cap, but also a minimum percentage that you can't go below. We are at the cap because we want to invest in people that are dedicated to this work at the expert level. So this is why Gabby is here. We also have an FSCP specialist at each of our 7 Title I schools. So we have 8 total. And then when you look at the other improvement dollars that we braid, we have specialists dedicated to particular student groups. And what's great about these grants is that they're 3-year cycles, so they're very sustainable funds. So they're outside of general funds, but they're secure in the sense that as long as we write a good grant, we'll get the dollars. And we tend to write good grants. This year, we were receivers of 2 improvement grants, one of only 9 districts to have the both grants in the state of Colorado, which is the McKinney Grant and the Educational Stability Grant, which we were increasing our request of award. And therefore now we have direct support in the elementary, middle, and high school through a specialist that focuses primarily on our unaccompanied youth and our youth that are in foster care. And then of course, partnerships and implementation. You know, we rely a lot on our Title I schools, rely on our family center, there are community hubs within our Title I schools. And most importantly, it's the partnering that our schools do with community members that are local, but also throughout the community of Loveland. We can go on to the next slide. And teamwork is easy work. You know, these are some of the things that we believe. Again, our FSCP team lives under the state and federal programs. They're really existent at the 7 Title I schools and the Family Center, but we do a lot of investing in people. One of the most important things that I believe to be the case is that we need to have experts in every area. You know, I think about like when I go to the store and I'm looking for a particular item, I hope that the person that I ask first and foremost at least knows what aisle that's at, right? Sometimes they don't. Here, you know, I think we provide that service that anybody that's a part of our team will have some knowledge and some capacity of the particular student groups that we have been blessed to work for and with. Move to the next slide. And really, one of the hardest things that I think.
Could we back up
Yes.
and look at that other slide? Which schools are the Title I schools?
So we have, right here, we have Lincoln with us. We have Winona. We have Peakview Academy. We have Sarah Milner. We have Cottonwood Plains. We have Truscott. And we have Edmondson.
Okay,
Edmondson.
thank you.
And one of the things that we really had as a mantra this year is how do we believe that after every quantitative data point, there's a qualitative story. And we also believe that our students are much more than their circumstances, so we've really been on this like target focus on how do we quantify the qualitative? How do we tell the story? And research tells us that in qualitative data that's quantified when it comes to family engagement, we have improved academic outcomes, we have increased attendance, we have stronger student identity and confidence, and more equitable school climate. So when I think about even the middle two around increased attendance, we don't look at an attendance as a decrease of how do we go towards decreasing the attendance rate. We look at our goal as how do we increase engagement of the students and families with high engagement education and activities. That way they're more than likely to go to school. And as a result of that, it verifies and it justifies that as soon as you know that they're there at school at least 80% of the time, then they feel that they belong. And when you look at the rates for highly mobile youth, it's some of the lowest rates that the state has, and our rates here at the district, we either meet or exceed those rates when it comes to those particular student groups. We can go on to the next one. And then more precisely, this is what evidence tells us with family engagement and educators. We look at, a shift from deficit to asset-based, and really asset-based is the emergence that happens when you get to know that family better. Then you begin to understand the circumstances. We definitely have a cultural responsibility across any type of culture that we're thinking about. And because we engage more with families, we tend to have a better awareness of what they're coming with and how they're showing up. And all those things will end up motivating the student. You get more support from the families, and we know what it's like to feel when we're not supported by families. So we want the opposite, right? We want to do the real work in front of us. And most importantly, you can't have a withdrawal without an investment. So when we have teachers and all educators across the system really investing in this, they have a more professional satisfaction of what it is to be in the climate of culture of the school. Oftentimes if I hear the question, why is this taking place in my classroom? Why is this taking place in my school? I'll say that it's the wrong question. The right question is, what is this teaching me about the climate and culture of my classroom, of my school? So we try to investigate and see more of that. We can go into families. And this is what happened with families. Parents and children have a strong relationship with each other. They have better rapport definitely with teachers. A better working type of relationship. Definitely a greater understanding of where the child is at and how it correlates with maybe grades or assessment results. And definitely more knowledge and skill of how to advocate for your child. Oftentimes our parents may not know, or our families may not know of how to advocate. What are the questions you need to ask? Who do I go to? What should I be waiting for? What's the wait time? So it's really about educational justice. And most importantly, right, social connections. And one of the things that I've discovered in the 2.5 years that I've been here at Thompson is that when we've created spaces for community, folks love community. Regardless of them having any knowledge of who they were before, they tend to engage immediately. And we've had some great events so far. And most importantly, of course, family engagement and students. They go to school more often. If they go to school more often, they're in the seat more often. If they're in the seat more often, they're learning more often. So education is taking place. And you'll find that in the next slide, we're going to talk about higher graduation rates in post-secondary. So really, there are prioritized families because these funds speak to a particular student group. One of them is our highly mobile youth. And McKinney-Vento are those students that are identified as experiencing a lack of a fixed nighttime residence. Inclusive of unaccompanied youth, inclusive of foster care. And on the right side, you'll see the dwelling type. So those are how our up-to-date 529 identified youth are showing up right now. The majority are living doubled up. We do have, on average, 50 to 60 living in hotel motels. On average, 20 to 25 living in shelters. And unfortunately, nearly 50 right now are unsheltered. And the majority of those are unaccompanied youth. Couch surfing, finding a place to stay. So we try our best to have them remain connected to the school and really share some love with them. We go on to the next slide. So these are some of the specifics to address and mitigate those barriers specifically for those student groups that I'm speaking to. And with the support of TEF and the support of our emergent, dollars that are dedicated within our funds, we've been able to successfully provide these services across the board. You can go to the next slide. And one of the things that I'm most proud of, and we do a lot of empathy interviews, and other folks will speak to empathy interviews, and Gabby will as well, is really asking them particular questions, 3 to 5, mostly 3, around certain areas that we want to get better at and strengthen our practices. And as a result of that, we realized that 70% of our highly mobile youth want to attend college. And if you have been identified as either McKinney or foster from essentially the age that you are when you enter your 9th grade year to your 12th grade year, you can start at 14 as a freshman and be identified as foster, and as you're 18, as a senior, you're no longer in foster. Because you were identified as foster and you've graduated from a Colorado high school, you get access to free public tuition for 4 years at a college in the state of Colorado. Last year we sent one child, Lucius, he's at CSU right now, they're at CSU right now, and right now we have 10 students that have applied and successfully been accepted. So because we're really utilizing that service, next year we're going to cohort the group and meet with them monthly and really give them some support around soft skills. And on the right side, you'll find what our perception surveys are telling us, and they do correlate a lot with our panorama perception surveys. And what's really been great is that although those may seem low, they're going to be low if you see them across the district. However, our unaccompanied and our foster youth are of the highest of the district. So that really tells me that our highly mobile points of contact at each and every school that we have, also supported through funds of the grant, are having some impact. So you can go to the next slide.
That's me. I was like, that's me. So I'm Gabby. That's we have a family center at the Sandsbury Early Childhood building. That space, I think this year I've been so proud of it. It's my first year there. We kicked off an amazing food pantry in partnership with Larimer County Food Bank, so we're considered a Nourishing Network partner. I have access to shopping out of their warehouse once to twice a week, up to 50 pounds of meat a week, up to, unfortunately I can't house it all, but up to 400 pounds of produce every week. This year alone, we've gotten over 150 visits to the food pantry, starting in July. Sorry, my eyes are like super watery right now. And it's just been super cool because that is how families will find us, but that's not the only reason they'll utilize the family center. There, I'm able to connect with our families and do empathy interviews, as we had talked about. That really is an opportunity for me to connect with families across TSD, asking families about their sense of belonging, how they would like to feel seen in a building, hopes and dreams for their kiddo, whether it's college or just making it through middle school. It's just a really awesome opportunity to hear parents and hear stories, and a lot of the times it's our families that tend to fly under the radar. So with us being in the under the state and federal umbrella, a lot of our ELD, like our multilingual families, will overlap. A lot of our McKinney-Vento families will overlap. So there we also have had a really awesome partnership with Souls for Souls, and a private donation actually through a HOKA rep. So we've gotten over 750 pairs of brand new shoes, and if you guys have ever gone to the family center, it's a very, very small space. So we have to get really creative really quick with where we house these, but we get shoes for kiddos.
And really
families,
good shoes like
and
Jordans,
Really nice
like
shoes.
literally
Really nice
Jordans
shoes.
and Vans
Yep.
and New Balance.
Yeah, right now I'm in the process of collecting just thank you notes, and it's just really cool to hear families and students, share that, hey, I've got 6 brothers and sisters, and mom and dad wouldn't be able to get us all brand new shoes. We have some winter coats, some school supplies, books, and we have a pretty great partnership with our community. Some partners, so House of Neighborly Service, Homeward Alliance, Salvation Army, and most recently the Sunrise Thompson Health Clinic. So we're trying to get that on the radar as well, and they've reached out to us to see how can we spread the word that this exists and get it in front of families. And yeah, I mean, beyond that pantry, you know, it's parent circles and just elevating family voices through that space.
Thanks, Gabby. And you know, when I think about expansion, one of the projects that we launched just recently is the Connected Conversations Project. And it's really reimagining home visits and really reimagining how you do a cultural or family exchange. You know, and you can do a connected visit anywhere. If you're showing a family the public transit route, you can show them, you can sit with them, and you can have a real intentional conversation. I've had empathy interviews or connected conversations with a father on the bench as he is watching his child play basketball. You can meet at a park, you can meet at a coffee shop, you can meet at a library. And if one of them wants to meet at a home, you can meet at a home. Right now, since we launched this, we have roughly 48 folks across 10 schools and the district building engaging in 3 specific trainings that'll end in May. So they'll have received high expert level training on connected visits for 6 hours, and they'll have completed 6 connected conversation visits throughout this process and then gained some feedback. So they're taking place right now. Just earlier today, I was looking at the notes that were being written around the visits that were taking place. It's been awesome. So, you know, when I think about sustainability and expansion, you know, we're always now thinking about expansion of what these services may look like for a school that's not identified as title. So, next slide. And so now I'm gonna hand it over. I've done enough talking, but these are schools that are in action. We have 4 schools right now that are a part of the Co-Action Collective, and also partnering with the Rocky Mountain Family Engagement Collective. There's so many acronyms. And these are folks that received a 5-year grant from the federal level, and we were one of the 2 school districts in the state of Colorado to take part in this 2-year cohort that it's public, it's family, it's teacher-facing training at the expert level that both of these schools have been a part of. And so, for lack of me talking anymore, I'm gonna hand it over to Dan and talk about Mountain View High School.
All right, yeah, so we can go on to the next slide. So like I said, my name is Dan Cowgill, Mountain View High School, I'm one of the assistant principals there. Both Marky and I have been leading this work with our staff this year, and we've got some really cool things that we've been able to roll out, and different supports and things like that we've been able to create for our teachers. So we are a rare thing that we are a secondary school that is trying to engage in this family engagement work. When you look at the body of literature that exists in this area, there isn't a lot that focuses on the secondary level. For the most part, it's really focused on that elementary K-5 or PK-5 and how families reach out and kind of set that tone for education. So we have been lucky enough that Jesse was able to tap into us and give us this opportunity to be able to work on these things.
Vice versa.
Yeah, so it's
been
a lot of great work this year. So really at the secondary level, what we've tried to do, right, we are a complex system, right? Our kids are coming to school, they've got 8, 9, 10 different teachers in a semester at times, and so that can, you know, expound, especially as you look at that throughout an entire school year. So things that we've tried to look at is how do we make that complexity as easy for families to be able to navigate as possible? What are some of the technological barriers that exist for families to be able to access a lot of the things that we have that are there? And then unclear expectations, and I think that's one of the things that Jesse highlighted earlier is that we have a lot of families either through their own experience or their own biases from what they've experienced in schools or what their kids have experienced, where they're not always exactly sure what the expectation of what good grades look like or what good attendance looks like. And so we've worked a lot this year to be able to try and reduce the uncertainty that exists within that. So kind of our theory of action and the way that we've looked at it this year is that we wanted to build early relationships with our families. So one of the initial things, and I think we'll talk about it in some of the other slides as well, is that we had our teachers through our ELO classes actually do introductory phone calls for every single one of our students on campus this year. And the big thing that we had to do, and we recognized early on, and it's something that I've taken that Ryan has said in a lot of our meetings, is that for every unit of thing that you ask a teacher for, you have to provide a unit of support for as well, right? And so that has really kind of been a focus on how we've done a lot of this work. So we gave back a number of hours to our teachers this year during TENS week so that they had the opportunity to be able to make those phone calls. So we didn't just ask them to do that in addition to all of the other trainings that we did. We cut back on a lot of the things that we wanted to focus on as an admin team to ensure that teachers had the time to be able to do this. And we saw very early dividends with this, that as parents came into our open house night at the beginning of the year, that they were just raving about these phone calls and the fact that as their kids came into the school a week or two in, that our teachers already knew things about their kiddos when they came into the class. So it was really great. Like I said, we wanted to increase that clarity of expectations, provide accessible tech support, create that structured two-way communication, because it really is not just about us communicating what our expectations as a school are, but hearing from families. So we'll talk a little bit about how we've also rebranded our SAC, which we now call our Family School Partnership Committee, which the rest of my team is actually working on this evening to be able to get some additional feedback. And then also strengthen staff capacity. So through this relationship with COCO, they've been able to not only provide us with professional development that we've been able to deliver directly to teachers ourselves, but they've actually been able to come into the school and provide their expertise as well. Just a couple of weeks ago, they came in to talk to us about how to have difficult conversations with families and how to best frame that with them, and the feedback that we got from our staff was overwhelmingly positive as far as their interaction with that. So that was kind of what we looked at as a school. So the idea is that if we do these things, then families will monitor grades and attendance more consistently with our students. When you do look at the body of research that exists at the secondary level, that is one of the main driving factors of secondary success with students, that if our families are just monitoring these things and having conversations with their kids. It's not about them sitting down with homework. It's been 20 years, 25 years since I've taken trig. If my son gets to trig, he's out of luck. I'm not going to be able to help him with that. But just monitoring and having those positive conversations with our kids is one of those main driving factors. Engage in those proactive conversations and partner more effectively with teachers. Just kind of giving families that if they have the tools and that knowledge, then they can ask better questions to our teachers within the building. Which leads to increased student accountability, because if we're asking them what they should be doing and their parents are asking them what they should be doing, and right, it becomes this good positive feedback cycle for them. Then we've got fewer missing assignments, stronger attendance, and improved course performance. So some of the systems that we've built as a team this year is, like I said, the ELO welcome phone calls that we did. We did back to school night meet and greet, where we actually asked our teachers to kind of step outside of their classrooms and just be in the hallway as they had those conversations with families. And one of the big positive pieces of feedback that we got from that was that they loved seeing the relationships that our teachers had with each other, which I think when we're squirreled away during conferences and things like that, a lot of times our families don't get the opportunity to be able to see that. And we also had a family photo booth, which was just an absolute hit. Man, like the families had such a great time taking those pictures. We've got a whole bunch of them still up in the school and things like that. It's been great. One of the things that, as far as feedback that we got from families through our partnership committee, is that they really wanted us to focus the way in which we did communication with them. So right, so far our two things that we focused on this year has been how do we communicate with families and how do we set up our family teacher conferences, which if you notice I've said family instead of parent. We've been very, very deliberate about using that word family, because we do have a number of students within our school that it's grandparents that are raising them, or aunts and uncles, or adoptive parents and things like that. So we've been very, like I said, very deliberate in the language that we've used this year as we've gone through this. So one of the things that families asked us for is a video at the top of our newsletter that just kind of summarizes maybe the top 5 things that they need to know for the week. So that is something that I do on a weekly basis now. We've gotten pretty good viewership. It depends on the week. Some of the videos we've gotten 30 or 40 views, which our kind of perspective on that is we've helped 30 or 40 families, get their information a little bit better. We've shortened and made our newsletters clearer for families. We've tried to take out as much of the verbiage and language. One of the things that was really focused on at our time at Harvard this past summer was that we are readers for we don't read for detail, right? We're skimmers. That's the culture that we've become. So we've actually used some of the things that we learned at that is I created a custom GPT and ChatGPT that allows us to just be able to copy and paste. It automatically uses those rules, and then it allows us to be able to copy and paste that into our newsletter so that it's just more accessible to our families. We've also created another ChatGPT tool which allows for our teachers to be able to actually do practice phone calls through the app. And they can set difficulty levels, they can set the context of the phone call, and it allows them in kind of a stress-free way be able to practice that, because we have found that especially with our early career teachers, right, they're not used to using a phone to talk on it, right? They have used a phone for everything else in the world, but not that. And so there's a lot of anxiety that comes along with making even positive phone calls to families. They're just not used to that. And so we're trying to provide them with tools so that it makes it just more accessible for them. And then action-oriented messaging, right? Like, these are the things that we want you to do. These are the places that we'd love to be able to see you at. Family educational support. We've built family capacity to support organization and accountability and academic monitoring. So the way that we've done that is we actually have 2 different video series that we've created this year. One's called just Lion Bites Infinite Campus. I'm big on the puns with the mountain lion at Mountain View, so like my poor staff has to deal with that all the time. So we've got a video series on Infinite Campus and one on Google Classroom that we just released in the last week. And really what it has taught families how to do is how to check grades, how to check attendance, how to set alerts so that they know exactly what's going on in real time with their kiddos at school, how to change language settings so that it's accessible to everybody, and educational records as well, whether it's pulling an unofficial transcript or pulling a student schedule and things like that. Google Classroom as well is kind of focused on the same types of things, and we got a lot of feedback from our teachers as to what was missing as they try and communicate with families. So looking at missing work, what the stream is versus classwork, calendar, different things like that. And another thing that we've been very deliberate about this year is making sure that this is accessible both in English and in Spanish. So one of the cool tools that exists in Canva, as far as Canva AI, is that you can take the translated, so a lot of times what I will do is I will take our English videos, I will translate them into Spanish through ChatGPT, and then in Canva, it will do an AI voiceover in that language. So we don't have to work with translation services, even though translation services is amazing. They do an incredible job, but they are so overwhelmed by those communication things that we're able to do that in-house and then provide that stuff in real time at the same time that we do our English language messaging as well. So these are just some of the quotes that we got as far as the welcome phone calls at the beginning of the year. So there's some different teacher and parent feedback on there. Our teachers were very skeptical when we brought this to them, as high school teachers can be. Anytime that you're trying to roll out something new, especially when it does put you in such a vulnerable position. And I think that what we were able to hear from our teachers is that they really saw this as an overwhelmingly valuable experience, and that they were able to really get a sense for some of the kids that were coming into their classroom, you know, kind of starting from the very beginning of the year at Jump Street. So it was great. And then, like I said, parent feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. And then so just some other things that we have done, you know, I've focused a lot so far on kind of what we've done for families, but what we really needed to do a lot of was building not only capacity with our teachers, but also providing them with frameworks to be able to do a lot of this work. We didn't want our teachers to have to go through and start from scratch to be able to build these tools on an individual level. So we have built a lot of things for them that have then provided them with the opportunity to tailor those to their own personal styles, because every teacher has their own way of how they deliver not only instruction, but the way that they communicate with families. So like I said, we've done a lot of PD with effective communication, challenging conversations, documentation of expectations in Infinite Campus. We have seen a huge growth in the number of IC family where we have documented the number of phone calls that we've made. So we've got hundreds and hundreds of more family outreach communications this year than we've had in the past. We've provided our teachers with a lot of communication templates both that they can use for phone calls and for emails. We actually were able to use a little bit of our PD time a couple of weeks ago to be able to set up some templates for our teachers so that they could do individual invitations to families for conferences, which is also another big research focus on ways to bring more people into the school. So like I said, with our 10-week focus, we provided a lot more time to our teachers to be able to do that. Our Late Start PD has been dedicated to a lot of this year. One of the things that I'm particularly proud of this year is that we've seen a 7% increase in the amount of families logging into Infinite Campus to monitor what's going on with their students. So that is something that we have continued to see grow throughout the year. I don't have February's numbers on there, but February's numbers were up by 7.5%. So super, super proud of that work this year. And then, like I said, really it's about that equity and access enhancements. Jesse was able to provide us with an ILA device this year, which, if you don't know what it is, provides you with the opportunity for real-time translation. So not only have we used this in one-on-one interactions with families as they've come into the school to be able to have more personal conversations with them, because it allows you to be able to look at the person you're talking to rather than just continually passing a phone back and forth. We've actually been able to use them at our parent nights as well, because it has a broadcast mode and it will translate everything that's being said on stage in real time. So they can, not only they can pull it up on their phone and see it written, they can put an earbud in and listen to it translated in real time as well, which is pretty incredible. So, like I said, it's that two-way structures, the Family School Partnership Committee. One of the things this year that we did in restructuring our conferences, which we're still trying to get families to engage in a little bit more, is that we've sent out pre-conference surveys so that families can not only tell us about the things that they're concerned about, they can also tell us about the things that they're proud about with their students as well. We've provided note catchers to our families that are both in English and in Spanish, and on the back of those note catchers are some sample questions for them to ask teachers, so that they can help drive some of that conversation rather than it just all relying on the teacher. And so we just continue to document our outreach. We're trying to be more proactive and just continuing to look for more ways to be able to help bridge those conversations between families and students and what we're doing in the school building. And that's just some pictures. You can see some of the different things that we've done this year. It was actually really cool. I stole this idea from somebody. The picture in the bottom left-hand corner, our Fax Kids actually came out and did live food prep things where it was like chips and salsa during one of our family nights. And so like it was an absolute hit going through there. So just an opportunity for our kids to show off their skills to the community as people are coming in and shopping for schools and things like that.
Thank you. I always learn something from Dan. Every time he talks, I'm like, man, I really need to do better with AI. a lot of it easier. I'm getting there. So we're, Lincoln is a small but mighty school. We've been fortunate to have the honor to have a full-time family engagement specialist in our building, which has made a huge difference for us. So you can go ahead and go to the next slide. There's kind of a summary. Lincoln has had a long, the next one after that too. Sorry, I'm with you. And tonight is one of our big opportunities to engage with families. So I wish I could say that I've led this work by myself, but really who should be sitting alongside me is Tanya Santa Cruz, who is our family engagement specialist. One of the biggest roles that we see at Lincoln, our job is to really help our parents understand how to engage in education and engage in education in a new way. It looks very different, right? So we had previously fallen into the trap of if you show up to the event, you're engaged. And so a lot of the work that we actually needed to do was change our mindset about what the definition of engagement is, right? Our goal is to really help our parents understand what does it mean to be engaged in terms of our child's education. And the stat that did it for my staff was that 9 out of 10 teachers will define a student as below grade level, but only 4 out of 10 parents realize that their students are at below grade level, where they sit in that space. And that's the communication gap we're addressing this year. And so we start with really providing a surrounded support system. As we go through this, you'll see a lot of pictures of our families engaging throughout the day, a variety of activities through the summer. Our goal is to support, not punish. So even when we're reaching, I know there's a big attendance push as a district, but we're approaching it in a slightly different way, which is what are those barriers and how can we as a school help remove those barriers for our families to make education more accessible for our students. Like Jesse said at the beginning, we are a Title I school, so many of our families live well below the poverty line, and they're working 2 and 3 jobs. Like many of my parents are single family homes and their parents are working 3 jobs just to be able to provide food and support for their kiddos. So really, how do we as a school help remove those barriers to get those kids into the school? It starts with every single staff member in my building knowing every single student in my building. There is not a staff member that does not know a kid in my building. From our ILC team to our GT team, we know everybody there, and we know their families, and we know their stories. And I think one of the things that sticks with me the most was actually a family that came in yesterday. They're going through some pretty big stuff as a family, but first they were willing to share the level of personal detail that allows us to provide that support. And she actually said, she goes, I just feel like I have a community here. I don't have anybody else that I can come to your school, and I know that you guys can get me the support we need. And by the time they left, we had new shoes, we had food, we had some support systems to help this parent get to some pretty significant appointments they were needing. And I think that speaks volumes to the work of my staff. So we can go to the next slide. And it has, over time, shown some really positive trends, right? We are seeing a reduction in our chronic absenteeism data, which actually got us recognized by the state of Colorado. We got to speak with the commissioner about the strategies we've been using. We're actually videotaped. The number of times I've had to be on a videotape this year, whew, we're getting there. If you know me, I don't like that kind of attention, so we're working on that.
She was the face of the Title I conference.
I was, I actually, Jesse showed me, he proved it. But it's also shown in our school data. So we had previously been a school that had been on turnaround, and then we lived in a priority improvement for a while. And I took over while we were in priority improvement, but then over the last 2 years, we've really been able to move into a performance, but not just that, but would have qualified as a school of distinction for Lincoln, which is saying a lot because we have a pretty significant special education population. We're a Title I school, but our kids are still showing up and growing. We're still working on the performance aspect of that, but we are growing and making huge gains in our school. And I really attribute that to the work that we've been doing as a school community, connecting with our families and bringing them into what education looks like. So, all that to say, over the last year, we've really been able to do some really great work. We were afforded a wonderful opportunity through our work with Title, and my staff was primed for the work. They are excited about this work. So we really, at the end of last year, started saying, okay guys, we're shifting how we're gonna engage with our families, right? Like, and it's gonna have to be, it's gonna feel a little scratchy. So the first scratchy part was really having honest conversations with our families about where we're coming from and where they're coming from. That's the biggest piece, because as elementary educators, man, do we struggle to just say the truth sometimes. Like, we say it, but it's with a lot of sugar and whipped cream, and we really just needed to say the truth. But also we needed to be stewards of listening to our families. And so, similar to Mountain View, we started the school year off with giving back the majority of our 10-week time. All except for 2 hours of our 10-week time was given back to our teachers to make personalized phone calls and do get to know you phone calls with our families. And so we spoke with 100% of our families before school started this year. And then instead of doing the traditional back to school night where you come in and you see the classroom, what we did was we just changed our barbecue up and pulled our teachers out so that everybody just got to break bread together and laugh and have a good start to the school year. It just set the tone. And our teachers appreciated the time. I'm not gonna lie though, like, it had impacts. There were still things we had to get done because there's just compliance things you have to do for schools. And so that took us a little longer. It took us until about the end of September, beginning of October before we got all of the compliance-y stuff done. But the investment we made in our families was worth the time that we gave up. Because that's why we're here. We're here for kids and we're here for families. And we need to do what's best for our kids and we need to do what's best for our families. The other big shift for our building this year, well, actually there's 2 other shifts, is engaging in how we're doing family conferences. Now this actually has involved training our families. It is, at least in my school, and I can't speak to all the other schools, but our families have not always felt so comfortable asking questions about their kids, right? So you come into a parent-teacher conference or any kind of engagement moment, and it's usually us talking to you, which feels very power-driven, and it's not that. If we're gonna grow children and we're going to continue to build this new community of learners, we have to recognize that we're partners in this, and we can only grow your children together at school. And so it's our families, it took us a little while to get them to understand that we really do want to know what you want to know about your kids. We want the conferences to be driven by what you want to know. And of course, we're giving you information as well, but we want to address your needs first, as opposed to just sit and talk at you for 15 minutes and then at the end go, oh yeah, we'll talk to your questions, email me later. And so our families, we're getting there. Our most recent set of conferences, we've had some families. I have my kinder and first grade parents are way on board with this. My third grade parents, we're getting there. They're a little quieter. And my fourth grade families are super invested this year. And my fifth grade families, they're half in, half out. They're like, ooh, we're going to middle school, so we've got all this middle school communication going on right now. But we're working on that, and it's been good for my teachers, because it's changed how we enter into our communication with our families, because what we think is important is not as important as it is to our parents. And then it's allowed us time to start building some of those healthy school habits, like what does it mean to be at school? What does it mean to do some work even when things are hard? How can you support them at home if, in my situation, we have several family members that school wasn't their thing, right? And so they may not know how to support their kids, but we can provide those strategies, and it's created that trusting relationship. So that's been our big push this year. And then this one that we're engaging in right now, which is also interesting, and we're actually gonna adopt some philosophies from Lamb, who is no longer here. Early Childhood's been doing this for a long time, where they go and they visit every student that is coming to their school. And so our goal is to meet with all of our students in traditionally they've been called home visits, but we're calling them connected ed visits, where we can visit them anywhere, which actually feels safer for everybody in terms of like vulnerability, right? And so our goal is by this time next year, we will have visited with 100% of our families. And our entry point really is, well, what we're finding is that it's maybe gonna be a little easier to make that transition with our kindergarten families that we're not having to shift patterns with. And so next year, we're gonna use some of our title funding to budget some additional days for our kindergarten teacher to start a little earlier and go visit all of our new kindergarten families coming in. But so far, we've been very successful in connecting with some of our families and having some really nice visits. We've been invited into homes, which has been wonderful. I can't say that as a parent, I would have been comfortable to say like, sure, come on into my home. Please don't touch the fact that the dishes are still in the sink. But our families have been very gracious with that. We've met with a couple families out in the parks. And some just would like, they just want to meet on our front lawn, which has been totally appropriate and awesome. And really, it's not designed for us to do anything other than learn about you as a family and how we can support you. So if you want to go to the next slide. A couple other things, these are all the things we've done so far, but one of the things that has been really awesome about the work that Tanya has done is I tasked her with turning one of the rooms in our building into a family community hub, where families can come and get the support that they need in a private, dignified way, because it takes a lot of trust to be able to ask for help. And so we created a space in our building. I can't blame the yellow cup. The orange is still 70s, but we're totally going retro again. But we created a space where families come in and they can get resources connected to, so this week we had kids come pick up shoes, we have families that are picking up food, we have families that are there, you can't see it in there, but there's a clothing closet back behind there with a changing room so that kids and families can get clothing that's more fashionable and things like that, and they've been donations from our community. That exists in part because of the hard work that Tanya did and part of the funding from Title, but also a ton of work from community partners that we've had, because part of building our community with our families also involved us in building our community partnerships with, like, Trinity Lutheran Church has been an incredible partner for us. They run food drives, supply drives, clothes drives. They knitted hats and mittens for our entire, they don't realize it was my entire community, we're small. But they knitted hats and gloves for my entire community. And they're just incredible partners. And because we have those partnerships and we're having positive things, other resources have been coming out of the woodworks. So we just had a family community partner that joined with us last week and brought things that you don't think of, like tissues, boxes of tissues to get us through the rest of the school year. They brought more, they brought additional clothing. And then once they were able to talk with Tanya, they were like, oh, what else do you need? We are gonna nail this, right? We're gonna nail this. And you can see, this is just a list of some of our community partnerships, but we actually have a lot of people that have like jumped in and want to help at Lincoln, and truthfully, in Thompson as a whole, but we've been able to capitalize on it at Lincoln so far. And so my message to that would be that there's a lot of people that want to help and want to get our families connected in all different aspects, and they just don't know how. And so if we give them the how, are they all in. I mean, at levels that, like she's talking about 700 shoes, they are willing to just go all in for our kids. And I think that it speaks volumes about the partnerships in our communities and the love that this community has for our kids. The celebration around that is that we as a community feel like we have created a family. And we do feel like our students are growing. And are we perfect? Are we always gonna be this? It's gonna be up and down, but at the end of the day, it's a partnership with our parents, and I think that we're starting to redefine how we engage with our families, and our families are starting to feel more empowered about how they can engage with their child's learning. The other benefit of that is through our home interviews, we're starting to build better partnerships even with the high school. So some of my kids go to Mountain View. Like during one of our home visits, there was a situation I was able to connect with Marky, who's the principal at Mountain View, and start getting those connected. Additionally, through this process, we were also able to build a better partnership even with Loveland High School. So now we have 7 Loveland High School kids that come over during their off periods, some of them for volunteer hours, some of them as teacher cadets, some of them just come over because they want to be a part of that community, and they do an internship that they get credit for. And so now we're also bringing back kids and high school kids into our community that allows our students to future dream, right? Like, what can I do? And get them excited, because for some of our kiddos, they don't know what that looks like. Some of our kiddos, despite living 2 blocks away from the sculpture park, have never been. And so it's good for our kids to be able to see that and dream that, and that happens because we've been able to connect with our families, and through that, community partnerships, and it just keeps layering. So it's been amazing work. We've been fortunate to get this opportunity, and the teacher feedback has been incredible. Part of the work that we do with the Coalition Collective requires that we survey our teachers, and our teachers, actually Coalition Collective told us they've never seen survey results like they had, because our teachers are all in. 99% of it was positive, and the one piece that was feedback was that they had actually wished they had had a little bit longer training because they had a few more questions, and we'd only allowed an hour. It was on a Wednesday PD. We had kids. We would have given them the extra time. We just ran out of it. So our teachers were primed and ready for that, and we are seeing really positive results in our building. And so I think as a district, it's a great investment to make because it's what we need to do for our kids. Oh, and that's a better picture of our resource room. We've had a few tours of our resource room this year, so and I can't take full credit for that. Like I said, it's Tanya. We also adopted the model from Denver Public Schools. We had done some tours around their hubs as well, so we were inspired by the work that they had been doing there and their partnerships as well.
Questions? All right. Denise, we'll start with you.
I'm overwhelmed by the amount of information you shared with us. I had little to no idea that these things were going on.
Yep.
The phone calls. What a great way to bring families, to the schools and make those connections. So is there anything going on in the other high schools? Or is this just a pilot at Mountain View?
Yeah, I can't speak to what they're doing. I can tell you that what we're doing is pretty unique as far as the training that we've done. And one of the things that we looked at when we first saw that we were going to have the opportunity is we had kind of talked about, can we do this as a pilot even within our school, right? Do we find 10 teachers as kind of a guiding coalition with it and stuff? And I think the more that Marky and I got information about not only what Coco would be able to help us with, but with some of the information that we got when we had the opportunity to be able to go to Harvard last semester to engage in that family engagement coursework, that we really just decided that it was the right thing to do was to jump in feet first, which is why we've been able to build so many of the things that we have this year, right? And Marky has provided me the time to be able to build a lot of these things and run with a lot of different ideas this year, and so that has been, it's been a wonderful experience. So like I'm sure that they're doing different family outreach, but I think that what we're doing at Mountain View High School right now is pretty unique within the district.
And I would say that it's pretty unique across the nation. Like the stuff that's taking place with these two schools and our other two schools is really high impact stuff. And it's really not common in the work when it comes to family engagement. So they continue to be recognized. So yeah, I mean it's one of the things that often people don't realize is that our teachers in their preparatory programs never have access to this type of learning.
It's just so impressive. I mean, there's so many holes you're trying to fill, with clothing and food, and I don't think the general public has any idea how much it takes to actually keep kids in school and performing.
And as Gabby and I were talking earlier today, we were like, well, we missed to talk about that. There's things that we are doing that are even super cooler, right? That's a word that we just haven't gotten to. Like, Ryan McDougall, he's not here with us today. He's really the dude that's really leading and guiding this work around working directly with schools. And it's just been great to really have this expansion and the inspiration that we are feeling across the board.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I will just say that we've had a number of opportunities where we've asked Jesse and members of this team to come and speak. So Professional Concerns Committee, we asked for them to come and speak and kind of present this to the team. And I think there's certainly a strong desire to see how we can add to this work. As Jesse kind of alluded to earlier, not every school receives these title dollars, which is a big chunk of it. So how can we within our system expand this family, school community partnership work across the entire system? Because as you're saying, it is absolutely important work, and if we can figure out a way to build it, I guarantee we have the right person in Jesse to be the Pied Piper to keep this work going for the district.
Alexandra.
So I don't know that I have a question. I mean, I think what you guys are doing is great, and I think the phone call thing is really interesting, and that there was positive feedback to it, because I know, I imagine I'm not the only person who feels that way when you see like the school number pop on your phone. Go, oh my God, I can't do that. Oh, I just broke my thing. Oh well. And so I think that they're calling for a good reason, and just like talk and get to know you reason, I think is huge. And that it was well received by parents and by the teachers doing it as well. I think is really important. And then the other thing that I think is really important that you mentioned in regards to conferences, and you mentioned sort of in regard to community partners, is that like personalized individual invitation. Is because when the message comes out to everybody, conferences are tomorrow, people are gonna be like, yeah. But if somebody like personally calls and invites you and says, hey, Alexandra, I'd really like you to come to this, then people are way, 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 way more likely to come. And then the same, like you said, with the community partners, if people know, that you need help and need that, I think they're willing to do it, but they don't know. Like you said, a lot of people just don't even know. And so I love that, and I love how you really incorporated the wider community of that area and really getting that involved in the school. So I think, kudos to both of you and the work that you're doing, and I hope that we can, definitely replicate it on a wider scale.
Well, where you talk about the phone number thing, we actually had one of our parents say that, you know, this is our third kid going through high school, and we've never had a high school teacher call us, right? Like, so
Yeah.
it wasn't even like they didn't have the bad phone calls, they had just never heard anything.
Yeah.
And so, right, that was one of the things they were super excited about.
Yeah, so I think that's pretty cool.
All right. Mike?
I just want to kind of echo what my colleague Denise said. It's a lot of information to absorb, and I think but you know, I really appreciate how you frame it as a positive, you know, and I know we're dealing with kind of difficult situations with a lot of families and challenges, and that we keep a positive attitude, because I think that's really important. I chuckle a little bit with Alexander talked about getting a phone call, because when my son was starting in elementary school, we did get a call, and the teacher came to visit, and it was our kind of excuse to clean the house.
That sounds good.
So it's not I don't think it was a total bad thing. So I do appreciate that. The one kind of question, and I'm just curious, because I was when you talked about the dwelling, I think it's slide 10, and you talked about some of the dwelling type. How engaged? I know, like, there's a lot of discussion at the city level right now around homelessness and kind of how integrated are some of those students into that set of services, or as a partner? I mean, is that? I just kind of wanted to get your sense of.
I would say the partnership's strengthening. I think Gabby will speak a little bit more to that, but like just in the last 2 days, we've had 2 different types of resources reach out to see if we'd be willing as a district to pilot a group of families that are not yet identified, but we identify them as potentially on the bubble, right? So now we're also getting larger types of organization reaching out to us to see how we can elevate their work. But I think, well, why don't you answer that, Gabby? What you're seeing around like Homer Alliance and
I think a lot of that too is for us is really understanding the ins and outs with these partnerships. So I always say we try and do and remove some of that legwork for the families and asking the questions and preparing them for what they're going to need. Every, I think, local organization is a little different, but it's really nice when we have a family who reaches out and says, hey, we're facing eviction. Do you know of anyone? And instead of saying, I don't know, Google it, you know, like it really is like, hey, we've had Salvation Army come in and work with us to understand that the last Friday of the month at 9 a.m. they start taking phone calls, and like really helping families walk through that and prepare them. And whether that's, hey, at 9 a.m. that Friday, come into the Family Center, we're gonna make that phone call together, or navigating through St. Vincent de Paul, where we open up the Google Forms. And again, like our FSCPs across our Title Is, that's what we're doing. Like we're walking with the families. And I think one of the challenging pieces is we can't solve it. Like we can't, have that, but there's so much about, they don't have to do it alone. And then someone shares that, like that weight with them. I think in an ideal world, it would be something really cool saying, yeah, absolutely, I've got a program, and we don't want to we don't want you to lose your housing, so let's sign you up and do that. But a lot of the times it really is just walking alongside with the family and just saying, I'm sorry that you're going through that, but let's, yeah.
And to build on that, as I was saying, organizations have reached out. Just today, we were looking over what might be a potential partnership with an agreement out of a resource center. It's out of Denver, but it supports Colorado. They're doing something with Pooter. They're looking at identifying 30 to 50 families that would receive up to $3,000 each, that would work towards like mitigating eviction or bringing up their car to be mobile. And it's not folks that we have identified already as McKinney, however, folks that are on that bubble. So when I think about those pieces, that tells me that already there's some research taking place on how we're providing access and supports in our area, because that's how that works. Because those organizations need us as much as we need them, right? So they want to fulfill a quota and a cap. So they're looking for places that they can have success. So I would say that we are definitely supporting our parents and handing them over to wraparound services that they're able to access now.
And I think I just want to highlight that piece, is that it's not that the school is suddenly providing all these
No.
services. Like, I can't help you with the eviction, but I can get you
there.
connected to who can help you with that. Or, like I actually have families that are very much living in shelters right now. But I can't solve the world's problems, but I can get you connected to a shelter who can then get you connected to some jobs and can get you to help get your car repaired. And now, because through title funds, we can get your kid to school every day, so that kid doesn't have to worry about whether or not mom and dad are spending the whole night or the whole day on the street with his little sister, right? We've got them connected. So that's the piece I think is important, is that the school's not replacing those services, but rather acting as a vessel, getting people connected to that so that their kiddos can then be engaged in the job of being a kid and learning, and those families can get those supports through our family engagement specialists. At the titles buildings, every school has one, but district-wide we have Gabby that's helping the
Just me.
schools. Yeah, it's all her, so.
And it's tough work, right? You know, and working, you know, with our team, we're blessed to have a strong team. But, you know, I think even about what you're able to do and what you're able not to do. So when I think about emergent needs, like we're able to put up a family 3 to 5 days at a short-term stay in a hotel. And sometimes that's not enough. So, you know, you deal with that piece, but at least that gives us an opportunity of time to connect folks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lori?
Thank you. I kind of got a little bit of clarification, but then now it seemed like the waters were muddied a little bit.
They're always muddy in this kind of work. Yes.
So so are you connecting with these other, because I saw all the names of all the different services, because I know there are a lot of community organizations and nonprofits here, but then you said that you also provide the shelter as well.
Well,
Or is
so like
that- or is
Thompson
that
Educational,
through somebody
Thompson
else?
Educational Foundation supports funding for emergent needs. When a family's been evicted, we can put them up in a hotel for a short term, up to 5 days.
Okay.
And we do our best to make sure that, you know, I mean, we can do mileage, we can do gas cards, reimbursement, those things, you know, but that money can only last so long.
Right.
So, but yeah, we do a good job of identifying where the need is.
Well, I mean, an example is when SNAP funding disappeared
Yes.
for a period of time for these families. Your team worked with TEF to figure out
Yep.
how do we at least get funds to help fill the gap until that SNAP
Yeah,
funding
slow
got
it down.
restored.
And I can walk through like a real life example, so you can, like one of the families we've worked with, if this helps. So we became aware of a family losing housing on a Thursday night, so that gave us Friday, and then you had the weekend, right? And so what was nice is that we were able to connect with Jesse's team and get them temporary housing for the weekend, which then allowed us to get them resources on that Friday and Monday, and connected to a shelter. And then that was on them, right? We connected them with the shelter, but then they were able to get connected to that shelter. But at least in the short term, it bought us some time to get that family connected to the appropriate resources. Because, again, that's not necessarily our role to take care of that piece, but it is our role to make sure that your kiddo's feeling safe enough to come to school. And so buying that time to get the hotel allowed us to get them connected to the shelter, which then in turn allowed that student to feel that safety and security, and that family to get their kid to school. Like, they understood the school was actually a connection point at that point. So it works in tandem, but they're short term, that the community resources are those longer term.
Yeah, and seeing the links in the chain, I guess.
And that's
so
why the
to
partners are
speak.
so important, right? Having an understanding of who's available.
Because I saw, the Salvation Army, House of Neighborly Service, but then also in partnership with TF and others that are around
It's a
there, as well as
village.
the food bank and
Village
everybody
is.
else, so. Okay, thank you.
All right. We're past by several minutes, the 60 minutes we were going to
And I didn't
spend
think we
on
were gonna
this.
use the 60 minutes. I said, I don't think I'll need it.
But I'm going to extend it a little bit because I have 4 questions that I would like to ask you, but I think you can give me pretty succinct answers. As Berthoud's member of the school board, I'm curious about how Berthoud is served by the FSCP services.
Yeah, so I can speak on that because I think that they rely heavily on our staff partnership. So I know Angela, our ELD teacher out there, I know front office staff Becca at Berthoud Elementary. I think a lot of that time it really is I'm here,
I exist, like what, how can I support? During SNAP benefit shutdowns, I had built some relationships, some partners with their family, and they carpooled all the way from Berthoud to the family center. We got them set up with groceries, Thanksgiving, like baskets and whatnot. So I think a lot of the time is really just me connecting. And just recently we provided some shoes for Berthoud, and it's a mixture between FSCPs and education.
Highly mobile points of contact.
Yeah.
Each of our schools has a highly mobile point of contact that receive training, but also are able to identify and refer and connect them to our team.
Yeah, I suspected that you were going to have a ready answer for the question, but because of the conversation that had occurred, Bertha didn't seem to be part of that. So I just wanted to be sure that my community is also served for the people who need it.
Really cool to see them all carpool, and then it was word of mouth because then it was Berthoud High and Turner Middle, and
Yep.
it was just,
Next question. I wonder, and this is maybe is a question more for Dr. Heller than for you, how do the other high schools find out what Mountain View is doing? I'm not saying that they should be doing what Mountain View is doing, but how do they find out?
Well, they're very well aware. They're hearing about it. I think they all have heard the word on the street that's going on. Obviously, we talked about during the professional concerns committee, we brought this team kind of to do the same type of presentation.
Okay.
So the word is kind of out that this is happening. They're hearing the things that Mountain View is doing, and so the question really becomes how do we actually build that capacity to do this work across all, not just all of our high schools, but all of our schools.
Okay, all right. Dan, a question for you. What has been the impact on attendance? Or have you been able to track that?
I think, right, as we've looked at attendance this year, we have put together a pretty good infrastructure as far as beyond just the family school partnership team, to be able to look at kind of what we've got going on. So we actually do weekly meetings as an attendance team, to be able to kind of assess where we're at with numbers, who are our students who are at greatest risk, who are the ones that we need to reach out, to be able to set up meetings for, to be able to set up attendance contracts and things like that with families. I think, right, we're still in the infancy of building trust with families. So I think as we continue this work, right, I think right now the impact that we've had with families are those that are gung-ho about Mountain View High School and the school, we've made inroads with them, right? I think that where we're going to see a greater impact on attendance is as we continue to chip away with families that are a little bit more resistant to coming into the building and kind of giving us their feedback about what's going on. So I think right now, right, I don't know if we've seen statistical growth in that. I think what we're trying to do is continue to build those relationships with families so that they feel comfortable with letting us in, as far as what those barriers truly are with their kiddos. And I think, right, we have a different set of barriers than I think elementary does when it comes to kids making it to school, because in a lot of our meetings that we have with parents, we're getting the message, I'm bringing them to school. And then those kids are coming into the building, and I think Todd Clark, who's our Dean of Students, counted, we've got something like 50 something doors that lead to the outside of the school.
Sure.
And so
escape is possible.
Exactly, escape is very possible. So I think, right, like as we continue to build these relationships with families and figure out what those barriers are, we'll start to see a greater impact on the actual numbers of what's going on with attendance.
Okay.
And inside those numbers, you know, Mountain View High School has the highest number of unaccompanied youth.
Oh, okay.
And mobile youth, right, which tend to be the highest numbers of absenteeism.
I see.
But in those areas, we're beginning to mitigate that.
Yeah.
So, and then you're dealing with 1,000+ kids, so it's
Yeah.
different than, you know, but it's pretty complex. But no, I would say that it's definitely have a positive impact already on the engagement of the children there.
Okay, very good. So my last one is kind of a comment and a question rolled into one. I'm sorry that Will Costello from the Reporter Herald isn't still here. I think what the district is doing in FSCP is certainly worthy of a story. And so maybe this is something that your office or somebody in the cabinet can make a
I think
contact.
communications will, we'd love to connect with the reporter to see if we
Yeah.
can at least get a more elevation of what this work is. And I mean, I think I will also say, and I think some of the board probably already knows this, Master Planning Committee has been looking at a re-envisioning of what we're doing at Mary Blair with that particular building.
Right.
And a possibility of a family community center being making that what that building is, and being able to take a lot of what this team has learned and how do you actually put that in a centralized place that's available now to all members of our district. So whether you're in Berthoud or whether you're in Loveland, you have access to this center that's going to have a lot of these services. So I think yes, it's worthy of us celebrating and putting the word out to the.
Well, and knowing that a portion of our residents, that demographic, are not on the internet. They don't have computers, but they do read papers.
Yeah.
And so I think being able to share this information in the way that they're going to receive the information, because they may not get it otherwise. So, okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Appreciate your time. Thank you guys.
All right, we'll move then to the last of our study session discussion items, which is 6.3, the single audit finding.
So that was a wonderful thing to follow, and what they do is actually in the single audit. As part of the single audit, we are required to report on all federal funds. And this year, when we did the audit, I already gave you the news before that there were no findings and all of last year's findings were cleared. We're very happy about that.
Yeah.
What we did differently this year is that finance did not do all the work on the audit. We asked the departments to do the work because they're the ones who generate the information. So Jesse and his team were part of that, and there were several times where we were saying, why are we doing this?
Stressed me out.
Yeah, why isn't finance doing this? Like, well, finance can, but these are your numbers. They represent the people that are being served, as was just talked about by the last topic. And what does it mean for the financial integrity of the numbers that will go through the process, that then understands when you go a grant application, grant receipt, expenditures, audit, make sure everybody understands the process. So thank you to Jesse and his staff and Patty for the work that we do to make sure that the numbers represent the people that are being served.
And that means a lot, right? Because when you do an audit of like Title I funds across the board, it is a scary thing when it comes to supplanting and supplemental funds. So to achieve no findings is a great accomplishment. So it's a huge celebration that the money is being spent where it's allowed and efficiently, which, as you can see, it's going towards this work.
I think, Bob, I saw that sentence maybe 2 or 3 different places in the audit report about no irregularities, no problems were actually found. So I was certainly glad to see that. Anyway.
So, so the information was sent to you. Ask if you have any questions on the audit. It was next year. This year was delayed because the federal government shut down, and the federal government was trying to come up with standards that no audit firm wanted to try to guess what those standards were going to be. So they didn't even start the audits with that part. So that's why our internal audit, which was presented to you before, was there, and this is separate. Next year, the 2 of them should be together.
Okay. All right.
Any questions or comments from any of you? Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Any questions from the board?
Yeah, I was going to start. Alexandra, do you have any questions
No, I
about the
don't
audit?
think so.
Mike?
No, but thank you for your effort on this. I know it's a lot of work.
And Lori? Lori?
I think that goes a long way when you have the departments chime into exactly where items are going. I did have a question just on the COVID money was mentioned. What year did that come in, and then what was that?
So
do you know where that was?
this is what I can say. The money came in well before I was hired. And
Right.
we spent it before I actually was hired as well. It was in the first half of the year. And actually what we were concerned with is that one of the audit findings for the prior year related to that, because we thought, TSD thought it was state money that came to us, and it turns out it was federal money passed through it. So we didn't follow the federal guidelines, and we were afraid we were gonna get another audit in this year, because we found out about that after were spending more money, but they said you'd already corrected the issues on that part. So, actually tying to the topic before, I think the Thompson homeless shelter for the children, some of the money was spent there, some of the COVID money was there. But I can actually get you more detail of what the COVID money was. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Denise?
No questions.
No. I guess my only question, Bob, is there a section of the audit that you are particularly interested in our knowing about, to make sure that as we went through it that we noticed? I'm putting you on the spot.
No, it's okay. I always look at audits and say, all right, I always look at the bottom line, but it's like, oh, the other part of the audit was nutrition services. Right now, nutrition services, it's another sort of, when we talk about federal funding, is it going to be there or not? They could have, the federal government could choose to get rid of the money for our food. That would be a major problem. Title funding. The good news at this point, we believe that there's not going to be any cuts from the federal government. I believe that throughout the country there was pushback on the administration to say, don't cut this money. This money's needed, and it's not, forget about your agenda or anything else like that. This is money that's well spent across the country. So I would say look at the sources of funding for what's gone on, and every year it changes a little bit, but title and nutrition would be the biggest thing going on, and Head Start. Lamb's not here. I also kudos to him and his staff as well, because they had to do a lot on their Head Start work information.
Okay, any closing comment or question for Bob? All right, we'll move that. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
We'll move to agenda item number 7, future topic items for board consideration. Anything that you would like for us to talk about?
I do, a couple of things. I guess I would like to see a clarification, possibly, and maybe this will actually be addressed because our comments will be at the end, but more so from previous, I guess, public comments, when something is stated as a fact during public comment, such as the clause of separation of church and state is in the Constitution, which that is not. But I think we need to take the time to address things that are not, not factual. I don't know if that needs to be discussed or how we should go about addressing that.
Do you mean in terms of what we're saying or what people in
Well,
public
when
comment are
people say
saying?
something, because if we leave something said out there, then other people hear that, and then they perceive that as fact, because, oh, hey, the Board of Education didn't say anything, Dr. Heller didn't say anything, that must be true. And so I guess I'm just wondering how, or maybe give it some thought.
I will say, just my one comment I would make is, as a general best practice for public comment, is we don't, in the moment, engage with those individuals. But I think when there's a clear, like if I have usually within my superintendent report, if I have noticed or heard something that I'm able to try to respond to, I try to respond to it. I may not always catch everything that somebody says, but I always try to respond to things. As you mentioned, board reports or board comments will be now towards the end of the agenda now. So certainly it's always something that if a board member felt something needed to be addressed or corrected, they could also do that during their portion of board communication at the end of the meeting. But yeah, that's.
And then, second thing was, as far as the roll call, we're always doing it in the same order. I know like at city council, they'll change up the order. I don't know if that's.
We have to do it alphabetically.
Okay, just a question. And then I did have a few people in the public actually say that, especially during study sessions, that they wish they could see who was talking a little better. Like when the schools are doing their presentation, they're usually off camera, sadly. And if they could be where.
Yeah, sometimes it's just a function of the way the room's set up and our limited technology in some of these rooms for audio and video, but certainly we take it under advisement and try to see if there's other solutions.
Whenever possible, anyways.
Sure.
They're welcome to come.
Absolutely. We have at least a few seats.
Yeah.
No. Thank you.
Regarding one of the things that you said, Lori, I'm looking at the Roberts Rules highlights that I sent out to the board. And in the section on public participation, the second bullet says, and this is something that our attorney actually did verify, points raised should be referred to the superintendent for later follow-up with commenter. That's something that we actually haven't done. And at the point that we actually move into our new agenda, I'm hoping that that's an opportunity that we can provide. Not that we will actually engage with someone, but that I or Dr. Heller or somebody would say, if you will give me your email address or something like that, I would like to provide you with some more information. That's something that we haven't done.
Well, and I will say that we do kind of do that in the perspective that we do collect that information when they sign up for comment.
Yes.
And if there's something that comes up in that meeting that needs followed up on, whether it's myself or a member of the staff, you know, if a teacher's coming and talking about a concern, we are typically reaching back out to say, hey, we need to learn more about that situation, or you know, for example, the ELO conversation that came up at the last board meeting. Then our team is coming back together after the fact to say, okay, what did we hear? What are our next steps as far as how do we handle or address that concern?
Right. And perhaps what we haven't done before on a regular basis is actually making sure that the person who made the comment receives some feedback.
Sure.
Some clarification, whatever, particularly if the comment is erroneous or not actual or something like that. So anyway, once we move into our new agenda format, we'll kind of figure out, I think, some things like that. All right. That brings us then to the adjournment. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, board.